Good day, good night, good evening, good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I mean, it's been such a long time.
You don't
I
know who
think
we are anymore?
exactly. I don't know who we are anymore. And I feel like our fans have been disappointed that we have been away for so long.
I
And
didn't
I'm
know
going to
we
blame
have fans.
Janina right off the bat. Just, mm,
You're an asshole.
it's wow.
You're both
It's
assholes.
what I do. I'm just going to say it's all Janina's fault.
Oh my god, did you blame her right away? We should
Yes!
wait till the middle of the show to do that.
Yeah,
Is that a big old mug of beer or a big old mug of coffee on your picture?
Coffee, motherfucker, coffee.
Fans, it's beer. Don't believe it. I can see her. It's beer.
Oh my god. I can't stand anybody today.
But before I go any further, let me introduce my co-hostesses with the mostesses. I am nothing without these ladies. And let me give a special shout out to Andreen from Solely Tennis Travel. She is 26 today, people. She has just turned 26. How are you?
Wow, it's been a long time since 26. It's great. Woo.
I know.
I suddenly have all this energy.
Oh,
my sister tell my nephew, I am forever 27 with a few more years of experience. So when the kid tries to do the math and he's just like, wow, you had me like when you were 12? She's just like, don't worry about that, boo.
No, the best thing about it is knowing my sister, knowing that she's exactly 2 years older than me and harboring the delusion that she was the wrong age until I reminded her.
Oh my god.
She's like, oh my god, I'm older than I thought. I'm like, yes, you are.
Well, it means you look good.
Well, yeah, that was happening a lot.
So all fans are here. Oh, good. Wonderful. Dima, Zenobia, Tony, Chad, Janina's here.
Dima came out of hiding? Wow.
I know. Wonderful to have
Dima really
here.
Special.
And Chad said 26 is the new 18.
They just want to hear our foolishness one more time.
I don't blame them.
Dima, we were on the fence, weren't we? You want to show whether you want to keep us around for 2020. We are on a tri-C. We're a WTA coach. We're in a trial period right about now.
Well, I think everyone keeps us around because guess what? We're cheap.
That is true.
Oh my god.
Emmett says happy birthday, Andre.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all. December birthdays rock.
They're all right.
Yeah, my brother's December. He is very stubborn and very, I want what I want and I want it now.
And we're so tactful. That's what we're known for. Tact.
And let me just say, December people, they sometimes they think they get it bad because they get a birthday and a Christmas all together and they don't get like two presents. But yeah, when those siblings are in December, y'all usually take all the other siblings' money.
That's true.
Oh my god.
Let me just put that out there. So let us not forget, I know Janina, she's the cause of all our trouble here. But I have to introduce her. She's in Florida, Ohio. How are you doing, Janina?
I'm sick, just like you. We sound amazing.
You didn't have to tell them that. I thought people would think this is my
They
new radio
already
voice.
know. We sound like shit.
Honestly, I thought y'all were doing sexy voice.
Yvette is here. Wonderful to have Yvette here. She happy belated birthday, Andreen. Yvette said.
Oh,
so happy to have Yvette here. Yvette, I hope we can lift your spirit today and make you feel wonderful.
Yvette already knows Jamaica's in the house. Jamaica's winning things. Jamaica continues to rock. So, yep, that's it.
Oh, just Miss Universe? No, Miss World. Miss World. But you could claim Miss South Africa.
We're claiming all the black people. So.
Because we know all of South Africa don't claim her. So you know
they told her to wear a wig so that she had a chance. Yeah. Yeah. She said,
was
fuck
like,
all y'all motherfuckers.
Can I tell you though, seriously, the person who has given me life, Miss Nigeria is very much my sister. I'm always like, girl, why are you always cheerleading all your friends like
Gosh, Andreen.
I know, but I'm always amazed that she's so positive and upbeat for every job one of her actor friends get, every play. She sees everything. She's totally Miss Nigeria. We need to be that.
Yeah, her sister is very much. Her sister has a huge personality. Sometimes I'm like, if they didn't look alike, if Andre and her sister didn't look alike, and her mother claimed them both in front of me, I'd have been like, I'm not so sure because.
Oh my god!
Because Andre is such a reserved person that she's shady, and but her sister is just like loving and out there, and she's hugging everyone. And Andre is just like, "No, you're too close."
You know what? You're so wrong. You're blowing up my spot right now. But the reality is, I always say that to my sister. I'm like, I have the reputation of being nice, the nice one. I really do.
What?
I know.
What is this?
Anywho,
I think that's a lie.
I know. Andre is just trying to, it's your birthday. I'll give you that as a gift, okay?
It's birthday.
People believe
weekend.
Andre is a nice sibling. Woo! Wonderful.
It's my birthday weekend.
But you know what? But December people, they're very, very coy. They're you can't sleep on them. So maybe that's true.
No, we gotta.
Maybe turn it up. So, and of course, there is the Homosexual podcast. I am here, and like Janina pointed out, I am ill with a cold, and I'm trying to fight it through. And I am dealing with the fact that I haven't been to the gym for 4 days.
That's like
I know
homosexual years.
I know. I mean, that's like 2 months in homosexual days. You're absolutely
I'm sure
right.
you have like 12 double chins, lost your 6-pack abs.
Exactly. And then
I'm sure none of your pants fit.
I am
fat motherfucker.
I'm trying to be a turf strap for an ATP player.
Oh, I'm just letting you know that I think.
Shut up, Chad.
You should follow the advice I gave V when she was struggling and about to get sick. Gargle with tequila.
Oh my god.
And the sad part is that I do have tequila at home.
I do not.
I have like 2 huge
bottles. Reals, the gays are coming for you. 4 days. Oh my god.
Tony says he doesn't have friends. That's why I don't have friends. I don't have the energy to cheerlead that much.
Do you know what's so sad about that? That has to be the male gaze. Because I think lesbians can skip a gym day. And they'll be fine.
You don't understand.
You know what? Y'all are crazy.
Yep.
I can't.
But anyway, so what are we doing today? So today, fans, I know y'all have been missing us. We are going to... we're not going to talk about the WTA fashion at the year-ending championships because Lord knows we're tired of talking about that. We addressed that.
We done.
We did that. We you can't go back and revisit that. We already killed that.
You're right.
Believe it or not,
it's been so long. I forget. It's been 80 years.
Chad's at the gym right now. This motherfucker.
I love it. Stick to Janina's agenda, reel.
Yeah, we actually have one, and you're already fucking it up. So you know what? I'm gonna get us underway. I'm going to start by telling everyone that it's that time of year to go to tenniswatchers.com, who has revamped the website. They look completely different than you're used to them seeing. Be sure to click that merch icon and get your 2020 tennis calendar, all photographs courtesy of Tony.
Aww.
It's been a wonderful edition. I'm not so sure about January. Actually, I don't know about January at all.
I already love February. I mean, February just for me. Just for me.
So,
now he says it's still under construction. You know what? You're an asshole too. I'm gonna put all y'all in the ass. All I've heard is promote my calendar, promote my website, and then it's like you're not doing it right.
That's exactly right, Janina.
So I got one of these lovely calendars, and there were a lot of wonderful pictures and less of people that I didn't like. But I too do that trick that Andre do. Forever keep a picture. There's a month that you love, and you keep that month. Well, Tony went ahead and stopped that practice from happening because guess who's January? The Vidal himself. So you can't get rid of it.
You can't even get rid of his ass.
You have to see him for all 31 days.
That was
in
a
January.
trick.
And then work your way, do the magic from there on in.
I do just want to point out, because I know that some of y'all are late and slow and you like to say, I'll do it later. Don't say that you're going to get the calendar later. It won't be available. It's not always sale. It's only for sale for a little while. There's no point in buying a calendar in June.
Listen, you obviously have not been to Marshall's.
Thank you.
I believe Marshall's, but Tony is a white man in Wisconsin. He does things right, almost.
All right.
Except voting, Tony. What's up with Wisconsin?
I wasn't gonna take it there, but that's exactly where my mind went.
I'm not saying
although Tony isn't one of them personally, but
I'm
man, I fucked some shit up.
But more than likely, people that you know, Tony.
I mean, I'm glad to not be the only one in a fucked up red state. He said he can't afford the shipping all year long. Charge for that shit, Tony.
Well, we love it. It looks wonderful. I like the cover. There's someone striking in red right in the cover. I figure out who your faves are. So
I know, right? You can definitely tell the bias there. And I have to say, every year the quality gets better. I keep thinking, how are we gonna get any better than the year before? Unless Tony is from a major publishing company, and then he steps his game up. Tony, congrats! I'm loving it.
Well done, everybody. Order your
and it is helpful because we forget what's happening where and who's gonna be put wherever.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
It is wonderful to have it.
All right.
Janine.
What?
You're getting us on the way since you.
I am gonna get out. I'm gonna get us on the way.
You're the agenda admiral.
I am the agenda fucking admiral, and we are on to topic number 1, which is going to be a quick recap of some tennis, but not tournaments per se, because it's been a long time. But Andreen, our traveling little guru, has been some places and is going to share some of the things. Andreen, take it away.
So this was actually, I feel a little guilty because I really broke my my ritual of going to London every year for the past, I guess, 10 years. But I'll be honest, I didn't miss it. I caught it at home. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. But I did take the time to go to the Mexico City exhibition, which I didn't realize that this was going to be like a Guinness World Record kind of thing.
Right. Talk about that.
Yeah, that was super cool. So we at the fabulous Laver Cup in Geneva, and who you all know online, and I said, hey, it'd be really cool to go to Mexico City. Let's think about that. And we just sort of like kept it in the background, thinking about it. And then I was like, I booked my flight. She's like, I put away something for my flight too. And then we just sort of hit the ground running. And the whole thing happened, and it was absolutely fantastic. Now, this is weird. The tennis itself, I don't think it was very good.
They're exhausted.
They looked exhausted. Zverev was serving double faults. I'm like, I guess double faults aren't really gentle.
Zverev was normal, right? Zverev was normal.
Yeah, I'm like, but it's
Zverev was fine. Zverev was normal. He's serving double faults.
Do you know what I mean? Because you think to yourself, everyone says double faults are mental, and I was like, what is the mental problem here? It's an exhibition.
Oh my god.
But I thought, but then I thought about the last tour that they did, that Federer did in South America, and I was like, I think it's better when you have like a team of people with you, so you can sub in. But they were consistent. They were playing tennis like every single day for a week, and it showed in Mexico City. So
they were traveling like they were in a local tour in Germany or in Switzerland. Like we're going from Basel to Geneva. Like,
and then different elevations and like getting up too early. So I wouldn't necessarily.
And then doing press coverage. Then doing a lot of press events. Like what?
But it seemed like the best thing about that was the atmosphere.
Yes. I mean,
it looked amazing.
Yeah, like it's not. I mean, I think now, people say, obviously, Laver Cup is an exhibition, but it's very different because you have a team and people, they're fighting for something. This, to me, is like a classic exhibition. Mm-hmm. There's no fight there. So you're not going to be defined by the tennis. But I think I DM'd Susie, and I was like, ooh, thank God this is an exhibition because Federer is horrible. Because the one thing also you appreciate about exhibitions is you bring out your trick shots, right? When everything is dialed in,
sure.
You can get all those crazy shots, and you can set people up and set points up. That wasn't happening. So I will not say that people were showing up for the tennis. I'm not sure if that's what, but again, like I take it for granted. We all take it for granted that we go to tournaments throughout the year at different points in time. You all do it. New York, blah, blah, blah. And we can see Federer.
Mm-hmm.
You can see someone like a Zverev. I mean, Zverev, yeah, Acapulco. But when Federer said that he hadn't been to Mexico City in over 20 years, I was
wow.
They
all came out the fucking cracks.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, like that's what this is about. Like,
he said he got chills when he walked out there.
Well, it was, I mean, again, it was a really amazing atmosphere. It was definitely about, I'd say, like a lifetime love affair kind of situation. You know, everybody knows that Federer's at the end of his career rather than at the beginning. And I think people just wanted to be able to say they had seen him live.
Yeah.
And it was funny because right after the match, which was an amazing space. I mean, the bullfighting ring, I like bullfighting. I've been to them. I know it's politically not great to say that anymore, but I have enjoyed that atmosphere. So sitting in there around like 40,000 plus people, the atmosphere was just ridiculous.
That's wild.
It was wild. Like it was wild that people showed up just there. But you know what?
I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Creepy. I mean, I think the closest thing to it is a little bit of what we experience at Laver Cup. That's what people are going for. They're going for the moment and the opportunity to see someone that they probably will not. I mean, just the nature of how we plan these things. And Federer is like trapped in Dubai. that's his contract. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I wish there was a way for us to sort the calendar in such a way that people really could rotate tournaments and you could really realistically see people. But just the nature of how people get signed up for tournaments, like we never see they never see Federer at Queens.
Right.
Then so whatever. So it's just, I mean, I think that's kind of sad. But anyway, the atmosphere was wild, similar to Laver Cup. It was just fun to be around and have the performance. I'm sort of sad because we didn't actually see the doubles match very much. We were Ange and I were just kind of walking around, kind of just soak up all the atmosphere, and like just check out all the things that were. It was so crowded that it was really difficult to move around, but we wanted to circle the entire stadium and just to get a sense of the vibe, and it took a while to get around there
and take smutty pictures. I saw that picture.
I know, and take pictures of us lathering up over it and drinking really good beer and having churros, which was fantastic. That was really fun. But I think the thing that really expresses how important this was for folks was right afterwards. We wanted to get an Uber, but that was going to be impossible. So we decided to walk immediately after the show and then find a place to eat. We picked a bad place. But anyway, we picked a place to eat and we sat in and they were showing recaps from it. And then they were doing like top 10 moments of Federer's career. Mm-hmm. And no joke, the place was packed and everyone's eyes is on the screen, like just watching these moments and like reacting to him. It's a damn ridiculous. It's a convention, I guess, again. But it was good because I got a chance to spend a couple days with Ange, and that was so fun. She's so lovely. So lovely, so upbeat. I did not show her one part of my cynical ass.
What? If anyone ever gets a chance to meet her, you should. She's one of those people that makes you you feel like you've known her forever. She's genuine.
She's so good at that. She's just really personable, engaging. And we spent a day at the what's the museum that we spent today with the lady who had the accident? Diego Rivera's fabulous sweetheart, but not really. We spent a day at her museum, and that is a freaking amazing museum. They have like a courtyard in the middle, and you just hang out there all day looking at art, eating, talking. It was fantastic. And so Frida Kahlo. So yeah, we had a really wonderful day at the Frida Kahlo Museum, and then we ate all sorts of fabulous food. I have to tell you guys again, Mexico City, do not sleep on Mexico City. It is such a wonderful place to visit. It has a very nice, like I said before, old school vibe, but also Caribbean vibe. And I mean, your money goes far. I was fortunate enough to stay with a friend, which extended my pocketbook. So I just had to pay my flight. But it was good. I mean, I think it was a really great experience. It was like a nice quick trip, Thursday to Monday, a little bit of Federer, a little bit of Sasha thrown in, a little bit of Bryan Brothers.
Sounds like a nice weekend.
It was
Sounds like a nice weekend.
Yeah, a totally good trade-off of London.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah,
and you guaranteed to see the one that you like no matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah,
under a no pressure situation. Everybody wins. Everyone's getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ange enjoyed the actual moments in the tennis when we were talking a little bit more than I did, because I was like, oh, this is why I don't like exhibitions. There's just like no tension in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
I don't like them either.
Yeah.
But guess what? Had you been in with the Nole fam and Dividal fam and
yeah, at least you're there with people you like. You know,
exactly.
You're going to be with
everyone out there
fans.
coming cheering your man. It's just like a Federer festival.
Well,
yeah, Sasha doesn't really have a huge fan base yet.
I mean,
come on,
but he knows who to hang with. Okay,
right.
I mean, I think with Sasha, it's interesting, right? Because they pay Sasha a lot of money to come to Acapulco. At that tournament, like he's somebody that they spend and Sasha is quite popular with the youngins for sure.
Yeah, he's popular, but when you compare the two fan bases, he's a drop in the bucket.
For
That's
sure.
what I mean.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I like Sasha just fine, but he isn't holding a flame to the Federer fan base, which is why it's easy to feel like you're in the house of Federer if you're at an exhibition with Sasha and Federer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I again, I'm not claiming to be a lover of exhibitions. I don't love them, but I combined it with a chance to visit an awesome city, which is great. I highly, highly, highly recommend Mexico City, but then also go to Acapulco's tournament as well. It's so close. It's so close to us, and your money does go a long way there, especially for. I mean, I think the British pound as well. So everyone's dollar probably is pretty competitive. With
just don't get killed.
I don't really. It's so interesting.
Mexico scares me.
I know people say that, but Mexico City for me is like being in New York City. I don't feel particularly scared. I do know that Acapulco has its own challenges because there are lots of things going on there. But if you stay close to where the tournament is, I don't think you'll experience that.
You'll be safe.
Well, that's good. I think you'll feel safe. I'm not one of those people that spend a lot of time thinking about. Listen, I feel like when I leave the United States, I'm safer.
That's because you're black.
Exactly.
That's a whole nother day.
And also, I mean, like gun violence is so prevalent in America. Like there is not. You can't even breathe in a church or any place of worship anymore. It's just
there's no safe space. So for me, the dialogue around safety now is really actually it's non-existent for me because I really do believe every time I come home in the United States, I breathe a sigh of relief that there wasn't a crazy person or not even a crazy person because that's not really what it is. That somebody just randomly take out their gun and say, "Hey, I want to pop off today."
Yeah.
So I don't really evaluate countries based on that anymore. I feel like American.
Except if it's Eastern Europe, Croatia, because
Careful. All right. Well, I'm glad that was good. I like it when Andreen travels because she sends neat stuff, and I have she sent Mexican treats, and she sent a cute little ornament for my tree that is not up yet.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's funny because you're like the person I know who celebrates Christmas the most in the most traditional way. And I was like, I'm going to get her this Christmas ornament.
I love it. Thank you.
I stayed with my friend Hilda. We were on a board together. And so she travels quite a bit around Mexico. And I was like, Hilda, I need candy that only Mexicans eat.
Goat milk candy.
Because let me tell y'all something. When Andreen travels, Reels is a greedy bastard, and he's like, "Get me this, get me that."
No, oh my God,
I want chocolate.
Well, yes, and I tell everyone that.
She just doesn't.
I tell everyone that.
I know.
But you know what? She didn't go to London this year, so that's her fault.
Sean was in London. He didn't bring you chocolate. Ooh.
He said someone at his job ate it. Oh, I'm about to call on their ass. Like literally.
You're blowing up people's spot. I will say I do like shopping for people when I go on trips, but I'm a very conservative packer, so I don't usually send a ton of big things because mostly if I want to and choose to, I cannot check my bag. So I really only carry a carry-on.
I'm one of those travelers just like, I think I might have to go to a pageant in the middle. Like, and I need to take a tuxedo.
Andrew's like,
you're going camping,
I'm going to be here for 5 days, and I've got 5 dresses rolled up into these tiny little triangles, and they all fit right in my purse. That's Andreen. It is a skill I wish I had.
I know.
However,
and
it was
I'm
good.
not taking clothes, I'm taking books because I'm gonna be so bored while I'm traveling.
Can I tell you all? Let's all make a pact, listeners as well as co-hosts. We're not reading on these trips.
I don't read.
I packed books for Jamaica. What was I thinking? I wasn't reading.
I mean, if I'm planning on just laying on a beach somewhere, I'll take a book. But if you're going to be somewhere like living the life of the people there, no, you read at home. Cut that shit out, Wheels. All right, moving on. Mexico City was amazing. London was a miss this year. I actually missed having you there. It was weird. I've always known you to be there, always. So that was really, 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 really odd. But Sean was there, so I got to live vicariously through you. And that motherfucker was like, "Oh my God, Rafa actually beat Medvedev today," and I was like. Because I'm like, you're going that he was at that match. I was like, that Rafa's going to lose, right? And I was so ready to just rub his face in that shit. Even though I was happy for him, he did travel all that way and he loves Rafa for some weird reason. And he got to see him win. So that was good. But traditionally, Rafa just doesn't do good there. So that happened. But it was so weird to not have you there. For some reason, I have on our agenda that we're supposed to talk about the Davis Cup. And I don't know why.
We're just going to talk about it.
There's no reason to talk about it.
Not as tennis, but I think our observation about Davis Cup politically is weird.
I know nothing.
Well, not only did you find it weird, the people who were supposed to cash into it and invest money found it weird as well. And they're like, nope, I'm taking my dollars and go someplace else. So
all I'm going to say about Davis Cup is if Novak Djokovic had his really, really good friend take over a tournament, brought it to Serbia, and Serbia won that tournament, everybody would be giving it a side eye. Similarly, Federer. If Federer got his very wealthy friend to buy a tournament.
That's all that was needed for there to be side eye in that shit. Just Federer had a friend. Just Federer and a friend, that was enough to cause a whole newspaper article to write upon that mess. That's all it took.
I think Davis Cup needs to do. I mean, I know people. I don't really, I think things change and evolve over time, and so the idea that this isn't really Davis Cup or any of those kinds of things, I'm less concerned about that aspect of it because whatever. I mean, at some point in time, y'all are gonna.
Who won? I don't know who won. Who won Davis Cup?
The Spaniards won. Okay. So they
played.
They took it to Spain and then they won in Spain.
Okay, well, congratulations.
I think eventually, though, they'll all compromise and figure out that probably what they need to do for the next era is to combine Davis Cup with ATP Cup and just call it a day.
Oh, people don't like change like that, man.
But things change all the time. That's why I don't understand when people get mad at these things. I just think that this system, I don't know if it is at its best. But I think ATP Cup is it's the very same thing, isn't it? And to me, it's like...
Well, there's some tweaks. They've got to probably change some of the settings so that people can actually get the right points and all of that.
Right. And there's a lot of politics in this Davis Cup that I wasn't aware in terms of like how much is being paid to people. Yeah. Like if you're the first person, first singles, second singles, and I thought all points were relevant. Like not like you could be like, well, the first one up gets 2 points, where the second one up gets 1. Like, so I'm not sure how all that politicking and that those decision making go, and that became apparent with Croatia because when Cilic pulled out, and I think Choric pulled out as well. I'm not sure, but they had to call up Karlovic, and Karlovic was just like, "Oh, they're trying to offer me some bullshit money," and I was like, "I'm not having that." He was just like, "Nope, I'll mind my business and still my wife and kids." So, I'm just not sure, and I don't necessarily feel comfortable, particularly with this. That I think a lot of things is going on behind the scenes that where players are grumbling and they're not necessarily saying everything up front. So I'm not sure whether to say whether it's a system I hate tremendously or whether it's a system I like and these players find it good. But I just know that I didn't care enough about anything to watch it.
Yeah, I didn't care about it. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea to have all of those nations in a city, but I definitely think you have to rotate that city more frequently than you do. And I think the timing and the placement is weird. I don't understand why you need the idea of like a final cup for the season. I mean, you could represent your country in the middle of the season. Who cares? I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? Like, I don't need you to be
right. And you're not at your best there anyway. You know what I mean?
Like, why should it be cumulative? Like, it's like, so the idea of it like being a finals kind of cup, so that people are exhausted, injured, broken up, torn up, all kinds of stuff, and doing it, I just don't think it matters. So I think they just need a.
And then you put the pressure on it that you didn't save your country. You know what I mean?
Listen, like personally, that's always what Davis Cup to me is like. I think Davis Cup is like this like masochistic kind of thing where people get to show their like allegiance to their nation. I'm like, you've been playing for your nation all year, though. I mean, like tennis is like one of those places where we really know where people come from. But I think that I think people who are reorganizing the sport are still trapped in an old bubble and like an old like colonized bubble. And so I think if they just reconceptualize the value of Davis Cup and they could probably create something really fun and really engaging for the fans without all the angst that this one generated. I mean, people were like, I think was Novak Djokovic is crying, and I mean, it's like, okay, Djokovic. I mean, you're the player of the decade. Do you really think that this not winning Davis Cup is?
He already won.
Interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting in some sense that players buy into that aspect of it, which I mean. It's noteworthy. I'm not particularly jingoistic, so I always find it intriguing that people take it there. So, but you got another chance. 2020, you can win.
Hey, we'll see when it comes.
Yeah, you can win a medal for your country. Oh no, that's right. Novak Djokovic.
Olympics are coming up.
Yeah,
next year. All right. Well, that's that. Let's get on to the fun stuff.
Okay.
So the fun stuff.
That's like emblematic of the entire decade, I have to say. The Davis Cup debacle.
It kind of is. But before we move on, ad break, tenniswatchers.com is offering your tennis calendar for the year. Every month features a player of Tony's choice. Pictures that he took personally, and they're amazing. And every week has the start date of the tournaments throughout all of the tour for the both ATP and the WTA, and you can get yours at tenniswatchers.com. Next
year, Tony, maybe you can give us pictures and we could build our own calendar.
Look at you making requests.
You are an asshole. You know what? Tony and I actually talked about that one time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work what he does. And if people want customized shit, it's a lot of time and money.
Oh, but you know what?
I mean, there's some calendars that you come that have like stickers and whatnot you case to be, and you could put up.
But you could actually order it and actually pay him to do it.
You could. I'm sure. Listen, Tony is always looking to make some money. If you reach out to him privately, I know damn well he'd be like, yep.
If you request it and you will pay for it, it will come.
Believe it. Believe it. So it is the holiday season, and we wanted to do some fun things for all of our listeners. And the first is going to be, since we don't really tend to follow the crowd, but this is the end of a decade, guys. So we are infamous for our top 6, and we are going to share with you our top 6 moments of the decade, our top 6 tennis moments of the decade. I have reached out to some people and ask them what theirs are, and we will share them throughout. We want you to share yours, except for Tony. Tony, don't start typing all that shit in the comments. You guys, I asked Tony, share me some moments. I had to scroll up. He sent so many.
That's great.
I mean, I guess I said I'm going to have a separate podcast just to share Tony's moments. We'll share them. So I'm excited. Did you guys have a hard time with your lists or no?
I think I had a hard time whittling it down.
Me too. I mean, I had more moments than I thought I did.
Well, because we also put a caveat on it. Like, we wanted tennis moments that were emotional for us.
Oh, Pablo, you made it. Hello. Cheerio.
As fans. Yeah, that made it a little bit harder because I was like, am I still emotionally connected to this moment?
I am emotionally connected to every single one of my moments.
Which is very different. So it's like, it may not be emblematic of tennis, but it's
right.
Emotional.
Emblematic of my tennis life.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be fun. Who wants to go first?
Fair.
Reels?
Well, I will go first. This is because you ladies.
Start with your number 6 moment.
Okay. So, I'm always extra because I'm the homo.
Yes, we know.
Podcast. I don't have 7 things. What I do have...
it's not 7, it's 6, first of all.
And who thinks you are nice? Like, who? What are these people?
That's black girl nice. That's black girl nice.
So I sort of think that things that within this last decade that stood out for me within tennis world, not necessarily a single moment per se, like a specific match or event, because I don't have any feelings, so I'm not gonna necessarily.
I was wondering how you were gonna deal with this request for feelings.
I know it's not like I boo-hooed over something, right? But for me, my number 6. Are we doing? Is one person gonna do all the 6?
No,
are we gonna
just
do
6? Do 6. Only 6. You don't listen. You are going to the naughty chair. We have already talked about all of this. You are making us look so unorganized.
If someone had sent the email fresh off their mind, we won't be having this problem.
Oh, it's just
because
6.
Somehow that email, I'm just saying, Andreen, I'm just simply saying that email that came with the agenda didn't look like what I remember we discussed. But I couldn't say anything.
I love it. Go ahead, tell me your 6.
Okay, my number 6 is that I felt that within this last decade, what really became a thing is the presence of like social media within commentary within it, and from that became the podcast, and from that became this podcast, which is the Roger Federer of all tennis podcasts. Wow. So for me, what stood out with me is just the fact that fans' interaction with tennis, because I felt that before tennis was sort of like, you could only generally interact with each other if you're on site at a specific tournament. And, you can connect with fans that way. And I think within this last decade, social media has sort of changed that landscape, and you could connect with people, and you could increase your fandom to zenith level, and you could even create charts and graphs and so forth. So within that, which was never a thing before. So, for me, that's sort of this decade is like coming together, talking to fans, and seeing other things. And sometimes you don't like the same people, sometimes you love the same people. And this podcast, which is the best thing of this decade.
Oh my God. I don't know about that, but
it is.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you have a feeling about that, Reels?
It's a good feeling because I get to stay in contact with you two lovely ladies, and all the people that we've touched and talked to. And sometimes it rarely happens, but when I do meet fans, of the podcast, I shouldn't say like fans like they're cheering me specifically like I'm a celebrity, but I realize the impact it has. They're all excited and they're like, oh my God, I'm meeting someone and it's really exciting. And I enjoy when we have a podcast, specifically when it's live. So I have to say, saying I can't be drinking cocktails, Pablo, because I am ill. And I don't want to fuck up my body because I haven't been to the gym in 4 days. So for me, it is a wonderful. This is one of the great things, and with the good, you have to take the bad sometimes. So
that's fair.
But.
So for my top 6, obviously, I've got solely tennis travel in my title. So there are parts of it that are connected. Most of my top 6s are things I've seen and had an emotional reaction while I was there, which I have to say is it's one of the best things about live tennis. Like if I was only, in contrast to what you're saying, Reels, if I was only experiencing tennis through social media, through mediated experience, it's really annoying.
Well, yes, you have to take the good with the bad sometimes, but it is good when it's good.
It's increasingly annoying, I have to say, because at the start of the decade, I actually really enjoyed most players and fans and stuff like that. But as the decade has gone along and people have like, it's similar to any other parts of life, as people have staked out camps, it's gotten less and less fun, right? But anyway, so for my top 6, it's like emotional reactions that I've had watching live tennis and things that really stood out for me, good and bad. And so for me, that moment, I was there at the US Open in 2011 to watch the match. No, to watch. This was just a really heroic and fun match live, and I didn't expect it. It was a Monfils versus Ferrero match. And it was more like, and it's so funny because I was just reflecting on that time. And that was in 2011. People thought Monfils was close to winning a slam, that he could win a slam.
I still feel that way.
You know what I mean? Some people sometimes feel that way. I feel like it's less and less the case. But I think that back then we were still talking about Monfils as someone who had a possibility of winning a slam. And he faced Ferrer in the second round. And Monfils was top 7 at that time. And that match just came out of nowhere. It was 5 sets, and it was such a thrilling experience to have, because it's like I think Ferrero might have retired like the next year, but it was one of those epic moments where both players were fully invested, and Ferrero was able to summon some of his best tennis, and Monfils fought and played really, really great tennis. And Ferrero, I think, saved 2 match points. No, that's another one. But like, it was an amazing match. And Monfils looked great. That was when Monfils had that really gorgeous green and yellow top. And his hair was still in like the mini dreads. And that's where I think he might have played Grigor at one point in time. And they had that weird miss kiss at the But that was like one of those.
Weird for who though? Weird for who?
Huh?
Weird for that weird miss kiss. Was it weird for Monfils?
I think it was weird for both of them. It was one of those things I think they were both Monfils was going in for the double kiss. Then it was like a slip, and it was like, hello, we're almost kissing. It was all weird. That's like one of those gifts of the decade, probably. But that's one of my most sort of like emotionally satisfying match, where you sit and you watch the whole thing and you don't move.
You just love it.
That's one of those like great things that you can have when you go to a live tennis match, is you unintentionally sit there and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to move around the grounds. This is captivating. And I think it was on Armstrong. And so, if I left, I would have lost my seat. So I didn't leave. And that was that was one of those moments. I love both of those players. And it was sad to see Ferrero kind of like coming to the end. But then it was also Monfils. It's like, oh my God, maybe he's going to show his possibility. No, he is not. That would basically set us up for the rest of the decade.
Yep.
Well, yeah, sure did. All right. So my number 6 moment comes from the year 2011. Ooh. And it was my first live tennis experience.
Ooh.
I vividly remember the excitement of even knowing that I could go. I always felt like live tennis was out of reach, that I couldn't afford it. I didn't know where to find it, really. I've loved it since I was a little girl, but it just seemed so far away. And when I finally found someone to go with me, many of you have met Jason's cousin Terry, who's no longer with us. And we went and we were like, you know what, we're going to do this. And it was so random how it happened. I mean, of course, that's my family, but Jason and I were out to dinner one night or out for drinks, and Terry was there with a friend. And I just had this feeling like, I bet Terry would go with me because he was a sports nut. And so I said, hey, do you want to go to see tennis with me in Cincinnati in August? And he was like, tennis? what do I want to go watch tennis for? And I'm like, it'll be fun. And you love to take pictures and they'll let you take your camera. He was like, I'm in. And I'm serious. Like, that's exactly how it went. That's all it took. And it just started this tradition for us. And I was so emotional when I got there. Like, it just felt good. I was on Twitter at the time, but I didn't meet anybody. I didn't want to meet anybody. I just wanted to soak in every second because I truly couldn't believe that I was there. It was like a I made it moment, and I was just so happy. And it was definitely the highlight, one of the highlights of my tennis decade, of my tennis life, really.
That's amazing. I can't believe it's not higher, Janina.
I have so many. I really do. I mean, because I was trying to go back and forth between, like moments of how I was feeling and then of something that actually happened. But you'll see at the end, really, it's all my emotion. It really is. My list is all my emotion.
I'm so happy you had that. That was so cool to talk.
It was amazing.
The planning of it and hearing you plan it and then knowing it was going to happen. It's
yes. Andreen encouraged me so much because I really didn't think, do you remember? I didn't think I could go. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I felt like it was going to be so expensive. And I was like, okay, oh my God, I can do this.
Like, absolutely not, girl. You gonna do this. It was
fantastic.
Oh, I'm so
and
happy.
Think of what I paid for it then as opposed now. Jesus Christ.
I know. Let's talk about that.
That's a whole nother day.
Had you known, you would have bought like 10 years worth of tickets and be like,
oh my God.
True.
Can I have a rain check for next year's ticket right now? Like, can I lock in these prices?
Listen, I remember getting an online, like a Priceline type deal at a hotel that was literally 5 minutes away by car from the tournament for $36 a night.
Oh God, that's so great.
Yes.
Listen, that's before it all.
That was the year. That was the first year that it was a combined event between the ATP and WTA. And most of the people that showed up didn't even realize it was like a huge surprise for everyone. There wasn't a huge, maybe there was a huge announcement about it in the tennis world, but there wasn't a huge tennis world. I mean, it's so much bigger now. We know about every little thing that happens now, but back then I remember people going, oh my gosh, I didn't know the men and the women were going to be here, and it being like such a treat for people.
Yeah. I mean, I think to Reels' point about the social media piece, I mean, that was still early on before it feels like you knew all the little nuggets of everybody's lives.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So that was that. That's my number 6. What's your number 5, Reels? Wait, anybody want to share a number 6? Should we share someone? Did you guys get any from anyone?
I did.
What'd you get? Share someone's.
I got, of course, our favorite Deb.
It's an all federal feelings list, isn't it?
I know. So I have a little note from Deb. She says, obviously, AO 2017 is up there as the most emotional moment. I can recall every moment of that final, not just because I've watched it so many times. However, I'm going to focus on a moment that you witnessed live, and that's the Davis Cup win for the Swiss. I wasn't even watching, but following scores because I was driving to an event. When I saw Fed had clinched it for the Switzerlands, I was really overwhelmed. Never cared about DC, but the lack of a championship for Fed was always used as a knock against him. Given the lack of depth in the country, I figured he'd never achieve it. Then the back issue when he was so close. I sat in my car looking at my phone and was just so happy for Roger and the team. That was such an emotional moment, maybe because of the adversity Fed had to overcome. When I saw your pictures, I cried all over again.
Oh, look at that. You people really have feelings. Oh my God.
Everyone does. You do too. You just don't want anyone to know you little fucker.
I mean, like, I could have done this if I had feelings, right?
Yeah.
But I tell you what, my number 5 is some of the feelings. And fans, don't be afraid to share some of it. I know we didn't ask you for like a list because we wanted to keep it a secret. I know, Pablo, I don't think they were tonguing in the locker room. Marquise and Gregor. I don't think so.
And I will also say that I think there was a question. I think that was actually someone asked the question about, is that the one where they almost kissed? Yes, that was Matt.
But my number 5 is a chestnut. It never gets old. I love this song. It is seeing Serena continue to beat Maria's ass. It is just my favorite, one of my favorite songs.
Remember when we did 12 Years a Slave?
Now, y'all know I'm not a Serena stan, but let me tell you something. Serena plays some of the best tennis. I mean, when she Vika gives her a run for her money, but Serena only gets to play top-notch tennis, Vika, in the latter half of the match, right? When Vika does her best, and then Serena comes out, and then Vika goes up, and then Serena be like, "Bitch, no, we tired of this mess." And then you have to wait for that. That's a slow burn, right? And Serena giving her fans, Ajada, and whatever the case may be. But Serena versus Maria. I know tennis pundit love it and everything, but we all know, the true fans know, we gonna see a tennis clinic. I know Andreen hates the beat down. What's interesting is cool, but let me tell you something. The forehand never works any better. The backhand, the volley. Every coach. This is why her father don't even watch the match. He's just like, everything I said is right there. Everything. We don't even have to go back to 2007 beatdown in Aussie Open. We can go to Olympics. Let me tell you something. When at Olympics, I was feeling so good, and I feel bad because I made Federer lost. In my mind, I made Federer lost to Andy because I was having too good a time on the Saturday. Because when I saw that wind blow against the Olympics, I was like, ooh, this gonna be something out here. It's gonna be something. And my favorite moment precisely in that Olympic final was when Maria had 2 game points, I think it was, to at least get 1 game in the opening set. And Serena said, no, but you're going to eat this. You're going to eat this bagel today. You're going to eat it. No questions. We're not going to have anything, period. You're going to eat all of this bagel. And she snatched that game right out of her hand. And, Maria was all pumped up for that game point. She was just like, yes, she did a little extra. And Serena was just like, you see?
Today, Satan.
Not today, Satan. I was trying to be nice. And then you're going to ruin it. So that moment, and then it got even better. If that wasn't even good enough in Miami, I think the next year, 2013, Serena won 10 straight games.
Yeah.
Maria was up a set and a break. This was the moment.
She was finally going to get her win, right?
Like, oh my God. Serena's going to lose this match to Maria. And then Serena came out in her white. She was clean. She didn't have a business. But this is how Serena is so good for Maria. She don't even need a business bun. The hair is all over the place. And that has remained true. That is, lots of things have changed in the decade, right? We know lots of things.
That's an enduring tale of that decade.
That is. So Serena stands, if y'all want that fire sale in slams to be ended, find some way of getting Martha in the finals. Y'all would have to endure all of that press bullshit about Maria is back and whatever the case may be. But get Martha in the finals, and then Venus. I don't want Venus in those kind of finals.
I had asked Maya about her favorite moments reels, and that was one of them too. She was like, "Oh my God, that Maria Sharapova and Serena Williams beat down at the Olympics." She was like, "Oh, that was." She was like in the crip walk.
It was the note in Miami. It was 6. Maria was up 6-4-4-2, I think it was, and then 10 straight games just got out of our hands. It was just like, it was 3-2, I think, or something along those lines. But yes, that's an enduring tale, and it's true and sexy. And I think earlier this year showed that it is a song that keeps on. It still works in 2019. It's still a hit. It's still a hit.
Hey, you are correct.
And I would say, caveat to that, just in the final note, I found it really disingenuous that I didn't really check out other people's top 10 whatever, but the tennis player of the decade, I saw them putting Martha on that shit.
She was number 10.
Oh, Lord.
This channel, I think it was.
Was it when she got busted doping because that was Pablo's number 5. Listen, that was
well.
that
I mean,
moment.
I didn't even want to throw that in.
That moment wasn't on
Maria
my
was
list.
claiming out they being on. She was basically an ex-woman.
That moment wasn't on my list, her getting caught doping, but that podcast was, because you know what? We fucking rocked that shit out. Nobody can talk to us about that. Nobody, because nobody put in the work that we put in to cover that shit, and we rocked it.
I think that was a special mention. My special mention, it didn't make my top 6, was the POVA press conference and the non-reaction from the media about that doping offense. I mean, and now that I think about, when you think about it, that was the start of so many non-reactions from, I have to say, like, mainstream media for people who really did egregious things. Like, I keep imagining how someone would have treated a Serena doping offense.
Oh my God.
I mean, because the amount of people who both sides it, like, this is not everybody was like, oh no, this is not really a drug that people use for that. I saw so many people try to, like, make that argument. I'm like, listen, it doesn't matter how effective or ineffective,
like, why would she be doping? She's an athlete. And she's a good athlete. I was just like, she's doping because she wants to be a better athlete, clearly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, whether it was whether it's real or not, the assumption, she's taking it with the assumption that it's going to improve her performance. That's the intention. So, and the quibbling about whether all the Russian athletes who took it mysteriously for whatever reasons, like, I thought that the way that the media covered Martha's doping offense was stunning. But now that I'm looking at the way they cover the president, it's not that startling.
Oh my God!
You know my statement,
Don't
right?
Take us
you know my
statement,
right?
Don't do it.
But tennis always provide a microcosm of what's happening in the wider world.
It did, because the lack of real she suffered no real consequences. Not in the way that you really expect someone to suffer consequences in terms of material loss of money, loss of reputation.
Got a fucking documentary.
Well, beyond that, people offered her an award. Billie Jean King was wanting to talk to her about, like, bringing her. I mean, I just thought it was just, I could just not imagine any star Black athlete even having a whiff of something that strikes people as off.
You are correct.
But she was caught doping, had to have a press conference. And I think the thing that most people spent time talking about was her dismissing the carpet at the press conference. I thought that was wonderful.
He wanted to give me 4 years.
She was really dismissing them.
4 years.
She was really dismissing them who were present, and everybody from the WTA, everybody contributed to that whole mess.
They were, to be honest, that was, and I have to say that was a turning point for me. It's weird that it didn't make my list because I'm so emotional right now. But it was an intellectual betrayal, so it didn't really rise to the top of my 6, but it was more of an intellectual betrayal because of the way people who cast themselves as thoughtful analyzers of the game refused to offer up consequences for Maria. And I was like,
then, and even today, the same thing.
They talk about it like it's a vacation. And then they continue to put her amongst her rival. I'm like, we gonna talk about those slams, right? Because those slams aren't real. I don't care what you say. So
you know who's the top rank? You know who's the top ranked Russian, right? Pavlyuchenkova. Pavlyuchenkova is the top ranked female Russian today. And Maria isn't even in the top 6. She isn't in the top 100.
I mean, and we haven't even talked about the fact that upon her return, she has continued to fail. I mean, imagine how much they would be mocking any of our faves if that was really what was happening upon a return from a doping suspension.
Right.
Like, she has not reached the level.
Mean, we will I mean, people would have already made the conclusion right off the bat, but here we're playing 3-dimensional chess. We don't know how to get to the point by saying, oh, she was really doping.
No, I mean, they can't even deal with it. They can't even deal with it because
doping was the effect. And that is to say, and what we need to also ask the question is just like, what else was she on that they weren't testing for?
I know. Listen, it wasn't listed. All
Right. Okay, we can't do that.
But like I
We gotta
said,
go
my
cute.
song continues to play, and it's a hit.
So
and
let
it
me
never
ask
goes
you.
old.
I think Janina mentioned. Janina, did that made our Pova podcast made your list? Which one? What was it?
It didn't make the list, but
okay.
it was definitely
we
in
have
my
to pat
head.
ourselves on the back because
Yeah,
this is what happened.
Like I said,
that was a good one.
this is why it's number 6 on my decade of tennis. The Real Tennis Podcast is the Federer of podcasts. We do the work. And we're just that good.
I don't think anybody realizes how much work we put into that. I mean, because I know a lot of times we're like, okay, we're going to podcast today. And we sit down and we just talk because that's what we like to do. But we put in a lot of work for that podcast. And we
that's
covered
why no
it.
one can come at us because every time someone
right.
raises a point, I'm always like, we read all the doc, y'all, man.
Every single fucking page.
Remember part of the document Pova changes her doses based on who she's
Yeah,
exactly. Which she called the important matches.
I took a little extra.
And listen, and what was so hilarious about it was that because they were watching her all the time, right?
Yep.
All of the tests that they were doing, they showed that these were really important matches.
I know.
So onwards, she was up in the dose. She had to face Serena. Homegirl was down in the bottle.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even. Let me tell you, then her urine at the Australian Open was neon green. It was radioactive. I mean, they could smell the meldonium in
the so y'all want to come at me.
Come at me.
I mean, babe. I mean, who
knew? That's part about all the detractors and people. The solid bit about argument that I don't. It's just like, let me hear your sauce, people. I don't hear your sauce. I hear you flapping your gums, but you're not bringing any sauce. And I had the documents. I read the documents, highlighted, underlined. I mean, let me tell you, that initial document. Listen to me. It was.
We could have all been fired for printing that shit off at work.
Let's be honest. I think at the end of the day, though, the final confirmation is the banning of all the Russian athletes, or the Russian Federation, at least, from the Olympics.
But the ITF just recently, within the last week, released a statement to reassure everyone that it's in the tennis.
I was like, okay, ITF, whatever.
Yeah, but you know what ITF also didn't do? You know what ITF also cannot do? ITF cannot show me test results. So what ITF is doing is telling these Russian boys, do not piss dirty. Get your shit clean. Because we won't be responsible for testing you. They would. They're going to come for your urine.
All right. Andrew, what's your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 is a little bit of a mixed bag and somewhat related. Because I mean, personally, I wrote about it. So it was Serena's return to Indian Wells.
Oh, you share that with Tony. That was on his list as well.
And the politics and the optics of that return in 2015. Again, this was more of a disappointing feeling. I was there. I was covering the tournament, and I was sitting there looking at the reaction, and no institutional ownership of what went down. That was my biggest problem with that moment, is that it was all a personal journey for Serena and her family about the return to Indian Wells and Venus, of obviously the year following. And I just think it was so, it's so emblematic of how Black Americans have to deal with situations. Like we have to take personal responsibility for how we felt about an institutional failure, and the institution never has to. Right. Because at no point in time was there really ever issued an apology.
And how many times did we hear, oh, look, Serena grew up.
She grew up. I mean, and I thought it was really important, right? Because it was like she grew up to understand that we have the right to treat her however we deem appropriate, and she just has to figure out how to deal with it and take it.
She has to get over it.
She has to get over it, not us. And our institution doesn't have to sort of hone any culpability at all for it. And so that was a sort of related live experience of sitting there and really having this be only about Serena's change, and maturation, which basically is just she's matured enough to understand how to deal with us when we reject. And when we've been wrong.
Just shut up and take that check.
Take that check, right?
If you can stand to hear Real's voice by himself.
Yeah.
The very first podcast, I dealt with that subject. And Anthony and I have gone back and forth. I have some very particular feelings about this. And I agree with you 100% on this point. That put me at odds with tennis.
That's a tennis failure. That was a tennis mainstream media failure for me. Which is why the shine sort of fell off for me about covering tournaments or any of that kind of stuff, because I think you have to, I think as an institution, tennis, I mean, you had the number one American player not play one of your most important tournaments for seasons. and listen, I like Indian Wells as a tournament. That's one of the first few tournaments I went to live. I've enjoyed the experience, but the politics of it has gotten even more and more egregious as time has gone on. And so her return could have signaled something else. But I just didn't think the tournament handled it well. I thought it was nice that Serena connected it to the EJI, the Equal Justice Institute, and did some things around that. But even that didn't get much thrift because, again, I don't think the tournament was willing to own up to the structural racism that was at play there. And the way that they basically, again, really challenged the family's honor, really, because that's what it was about. It was in people's minds. It played as if the family had set this thing in motion, right?
Yeah.
So, so I think then they couldn't actually really deal with the EJI initiative, right? Because if they did, they would have had a sort of come to Jesus moment and they would have said, yes, we're part of the structural issues and blah, blah, blah. They could have had a really transformative moment, but it really wasn't. So I thought that was a real institutional failure on the media side again. So that, and I think emblematic of, just the way the decade continues. So Indian Wells. Yeah, I know. Pablo's like, I hate Indian Wells.
I just want to add to that because it's such a pivotal moment that specifically to Serena, it launched her as a marketable.
Yeah, it was a part of her
white audience.
It was a part of her rebranding. I mean,
for Main Street, Madison Avenue, I should say.
Okay, so
that rebrand.
Reels is telling on us. But that is the backstory for us about Indian Wells, is that this was a moment that I think it did allow Serena to become someone that, you're right, that they can say she's now someone that we can support. Because actually, you're right. Post that return, she's a poster child.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And also probably
and then allow them
coinciding with the fact that Martha had a dip in 2016 in her doping. So that they had to find something.
Well, I think people in the know knew Martha was coming up.
Oh, shit.
Because that document said we were all looking at her. Because let me tell you something, that document had blood samples from 2012. Okay.
Interesting.
But so they had the meldonium in front. But I would say that it really, and for me, it allowed, I don't know what decision Serena made, because you mentioned equal justice, but Serena just pointed to them and never collaborated.
She never really did what I think.
Right. She didn't connect with them, I should say, rather. There wasn't a equal justice sitting next to Serena.
Yeah.
Serena just said, go to those people if you want to have a talk about this. But it allowed Madison Avenue to know that if there's any sketchy racist situation that will come about, because we know it will come out, that we now have a path and a direction and someone we can go through in order to make it right with more money.
It's a good point.
That she's willing to accept more money or whatever the case may be. Because all of a sudden, Serena's getting magazine covers and mainstream, which she didn't. And white women were embracing her, which they never did. It helped that Pova was doping.
It helped because Pova doped. Serena returned in March of 2015, and Pova's doping came in March of 2016. So that actually really then allowed Serena to then leverage that forgiveness narrative. And I mean, now Serena is really the queen of like mommy,
because she was also doing exceptionally physical things, right?
Yeah.
Her tennis 2013, 14, 15 was exceptional.
Yeah.
Right? So she was like, so you could expect, so she was So she had to do all of those things. Meanwhile, they were throwing out all that money at Pova when she just won one major.
Right.
You know?
Oh my God! All hail the queen. She has one major.
I mean, it's like Andy Murray, the Pova of.
Well.
Anyway. So but yeah. So those connections are really interesting.
They are.
As Tony says, yeah, I guess that you're right in terms of Serena's performance. It was excellent. She had the Serena Slam and then nearly the Calendar Slam that year. So, I mean, I think actually it was really great that she made that forgiveness piece because the moneyed people who attend Indian Wells, that's a huge signal for them that it's now okay for us to honor this athlete. She's now uncomplicated it for us.
Right. We can navigate around that. Okay.
So I actually realized that now that I'm looking at this and you were like, oh my God, I can't believe that wasn't your first one. I put my list in order of years.
Okay. Good
That's
deal.
what happened, except I put one in the middle and this should have been my first one. So I'm going to say it now. One of my most favorite memories from the decades, this past decade, is the 2010 French Open. Mm-hmm. When Francesca Schiavone won.
Yes.
That was one of the first times ever that I watched a player move through a tournament that I didn't know that well and just sheerly enjoyed. I had no reason to cheer for her other than I liked watching her play. Mm-hmm. And she was such an underdog and it was so fun. And my now almost 12-year-old son was 2 at the time. And I can remember being in the living room and she was on TV and he was sitting in one of those little round things that you jump. And he's jumping with Franny going, Aki, Aki. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is that noise? Because that's not the TV. And it was Micah. I will never forget that. It was like, I was like, yes, I have birthed a tennis fan, you know? It was great. It was so great. So, I mean, that it was fun to just watch her. It was a sheer unexpected joy to watch her win that title. And it was a fun mommy moment for me. I felt like I was doing something right.
Finally.
Right.
Finally.
Now, Franny, you can do with some of your love. Franny, let me just say, I know you're battling cancer, but keep your drugs away from Tara Irani, okay? She might not rush it over into her food.
Yeah.
That's a great tennis moment.
So we are at number 4. And we're back to let's share a moment. Do you have any moments to share?
Number 4.
Yes, she just shared her number 5. Yeah. So we'll share a moment that we got from someone else. I reached out to Sean and I did ask him to come on, but that motherfucker had tickets to the Nutcracker today, the New York City Ballet. So somehow that ranks higher than us. I'm not sure why. But he's the first thing he said when I said, tell me some of your favorite tennis moments, last decade. He said, well, it's not a good one. And I had some of those things too. Like, just because it's a moment that you remember doesn't mean it was pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm still recovering from Serena's loss to Vinci at that US Open. But you know what? I feel like a lot of people feel that way. That was the beginning of a finals loss.
I was there. Andrina and I was there, and I felt that was one of those interesting things for me because for me, being in that stadium, I felt like one of those things. Like if I become a celebrity, I have to realize if I just happen to be, I don't think I would be, that I have to be very careful that fans aren't necessarily cheering for me. They're cheering for themselves and their feelings because no one cared about Serena. They cared about Serena winning the slam and being part of that moment. They didn't care about the pressure that was on her. They buy into that bullshit that, Billie Jean's precious privilege. Pressure can kill you, bitch. It can kill you. it can be too much. So for me, that was a strange moment because I felt that Serena realized that she was a commodity and not a person. Because everyone, the pressure in that stadium was so intense for that match that, Vinci, and it got to Serena. And Serena realized she was human and that no one really cared about her being human. They were frustrated at her that she wasn't giving them the thing that they wanted. And Serena had already prove for them to say that Serena is the best when Serena had already proved herself the best ages and ages ago and so many times. But that's that.
I think that made one of my moments. Similarly, only because it brought up, so I guess may as well say it's one of my moments. Yeah, we were there together, and the atmosphere was so weird. It was very heavy. And partially because it became very clear in the moment that she just was not playing well. Like, the only thing that's comparable to that for me live was watching her play Simona Halep. Is like, there's no Serena there. Like, the movement's gone. And then the audience itself, I think they themselves felt that the moment wasn't going to come together right? And so it was really flat. It was really a flat moment. And it was like watching a funeral. Like, like I mean, so it's like, it's a weird thing, and so it's strange for people to characterize that even as like I think somebody put it as the match of the decade. It just wasn't that, because like the audience wasn't in it right, and the mood. It's like you're watching a player not play.
Yeah, because rain had messed up the schedule, right? It wasn't supposed to be at that time.
So it was it was not a great. It was very muggy, and the audience was just very disagreeable. I mean, I think
I watched it live. It was.
Yeah, it was just.
I don't remember. I feel like I didn't watch it live, but it was on over and over and over all day because there had been a lot of rain, and they just kept showing it and showing it and showing it.
And the only thing that was comparable to something else that I saw live, and for a player who just couldn't get their game going, was like the Federer versus Cilic in 2014 after that Monfils match. Like, the person is not playing. Like.
Well, I mean, her game was going, I mean, she won the first set quite relatively easy.
But then the second set, it was...
Yeah, I think when she was up a break at one point, and then she just saw the finish line was right there.
It was weird.
It was weird because, I mean, we know Simona wasn't going to do anything against Pineda. Pineda had already handled that. So it was just like, this was... But, and it was what was so strange after that match ended, I got to be in the back area and seeing, I mean, people just, no one, the pundits, right? No one recognized the moment and the pressure on Serena. They were just like, oh, well, basically, they actually were just like, oh, the fucker failed, whatever. She's so rude. She didn't give us a moment.
Yeah.
She just left right out her hair. Like, she just ran out of hair and how disrespectful it was. And she needed to give me a million-hour interview. I just like, the fuck is all of this? Like, what's wrong with you people? And that was just like, my God, like, no one recognized this woman's humanity. No one recognized the pressure and all of this thing on this person. And y'all needed this for Serena to prove herself.
Well, that Serena's always going to have to prove herself every time. Like, it's not enough that she's already done it all.
I mean, look.
She'll have to.
I mean, at that point, Federer hadn't won a major for 3 years. And people are still calling him the greatest. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't need to do... it was different.
Yeah.
It's so completely different.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was just like... I mean, I would be curious if one of these days I would really love if she... Because I don't know if she necessarily give honest interviews.
No.
But I would love for one of these days. And I don't want a book either, at least not now. Because we know books when they're late.
You cannot, if you are a black athlete, you cannot give honest interviews, especially in a white sport.
Well, you know what? Serena, call me girl. I I would just tell my two homegirls here, Andreen and Janina, but let's have an honest tete-a-tete. You know what I mean? I could fix those eyebrows for you or something. You know what I mean?
Leave your eyebrows
Here we go.
alone.
Here we go. That might be a moment of the decade. Serena's eyebrows.
Oh.
Anyways, Reels.
Calling me out for calling her out.
What's your next moment, Reels?
Okay, my moment. So okay, I didn't completely fuck up the assignment. I have a very specific moment.
Okay,
it's 2009, which is the very beginning of the decade. Wimbledon men's final. So the women's final has already been sucked for me because Serena beat Venus, and that's a shit show. We don't count those matches. But in the men's final, Andy Roddick came to motherfucking play.
Oh, that was Roddick and Federer?
Yes.
That was a great
I know you want to talk about the 2008 Diva Dow. That match was shit. I don't know how y'all even saw that match. But anyway.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about 2009 Wimbledon?
Yes.
2009 Wimbledon.
Oh, wait. We can include 2009?
It's a decade, no? Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway.
See, you did fuck up the assignment. This is the kind of person I am.
10 years. Okay. But anyway.
It's fine. I actually considered it, and then I decided it wasn't part of the assignment. I considered that match.
And Tony's calling you on it again too, Reels. Wait, 2009 is that is the last.
Wait. I'm going to get to the point.
No,
okay.
Go for it.
In 2009, Andy Roddick, and Roddick. I never want to confuse you with Murray. Andy Roddick came to play. He had lost 2 Wimbledon finals.
Poor thing.
Federer already back to back. Federer had blocked him mercilessly at the Australian Open. I mean, and plus he had snatched away at US Open couple times and also finals from him, right?
Yep.
This was the thing that he got his weight together. He was together.
Yes.
All together, and he laid it all on the line. Everything. And the unfortunate thing was that he didn't serve first in the 5th set. He did. And that sucked it up. The next year, 2010, he bumped out in the first round to a Chinese Taipei player, I think it is. He's cute. I forget his name. I don't want to fuck up his name, so I'm not going to say his name. But I think he lost in the first round. Exited. And that moment, we would not have started. But that moment basically signaled the decline of American men in tennis.
Oh, well, yeah, and you're right.
For this whole decade, there has not been any prominent American men of work, particularly of substance. I'm going to say it all day. I'm going to say it. I mean, in the past, substance didn't matter. But now in the age of social media, substance matter. When we peel away this thin veneer that is there, there's nothing there for most of these American players. They neither have game, they don't have personality. I'm sorry, Chad. I know you're gonna come for me and your boy Francis Tiafoe, but that's a special case, okay? Tiafoe, you got tenacity, you got Instagram looks, but he really got the tennis. But I mean, for the past decade, these American men have not been showing up. Those who do show up, they're coming with the same bullshit forehand and a serve. And I don't know which tennis they've been watching because the code ain't built for that shit. The code hasn't been built for that shit for the last decade. And we could probably include that in this moment about the decline of the slowing down of the courts for the last decade. But that basically signaled Andy Roddick was the last great American man in this. Who could have believed that?
That's true. I mean, he was the last American man that was ranked number 1, isn't he?
Yes, anywhere close to being number 1. He's the only one who got to a major final.
We haven't had another number 1 male from America since Roddick, I'm pretty sure. I don't think so.
Right. Even from the Americas, period. So
bring Roddick back. Everybody else is coming up.
So your point is basically the death of the American male tennis player?
Yes, and I mean
for the decade, signaling the death of the
decade. Because
I
mean, let's be honest. I mean, America had an excesses of riches in the prior. I mean, you didn't know who to pick for a Davis Cup team, and it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
Right? You could have so many options. And I mean, we're bombarded by, constantly told, like John McEnroe and all these people want to kiss me. But none of these men look solid or even promise it. That's just it. That we can't even look back and be like, oh my God, I'm excited to see somebody coming up or whatever. None of them are.
Well, that's
I'm not saying that.
that's just emblematic of the era, right? So, I mean,
Well,
this might explain the American male challenge right now.
right, in general, right? It
Yep.
speaks to that, right? You know what I mean?
The larger question of who are they going to be? What are they about?
Right.
Both on and off the court.
But you know, I mean, but I'm just simply saying that you wouldn't have if at the beginning of 2009, if someone had signed 2010 to be specific, that there would be no American man in the top 10 by the end of the decade. People be you a fucking liar. Get out of here. That's bullshit. Insane. No way. That no American man would win a 40 majors. Well, nobody else but 3 or 4. I don't know, but you know what I mean. In fact, we have a player from Croatia. I mean, a player from Switzerland, not named Federer, and from Argentina, who has a major, and they haven't even been to a major finals.
Yeah. Gosh,
you're
making this really depressing for the American men. Cut it out. Let's move on.
Well, they should look around a lot because girl, it's pressing for American men outside anyway. At least for
that's why I'm saying it's
emblematic. Thank God he's still so young.
It's emblematic of so many things. I mean, particularly but most likely within the tennis space. However, I think there's no reason for Chad to be crestfallen because I think what this suggests is that this decade was not so great for some American men, but I think the next decade is going to be better.
Yeah.
Because similar to what we think needs to happen within other spheres, it's time for tennis to welcome folks of color.
For sure.
Let them come have their moment.
Guys, Tiafoe is 21 years old.
Exactly. But I mean, also I just think that, I think what you're also highlighting though, Reels, is where the powerhouse for American tennis, what it represented and where it came from for a long time, right? Out of these sort of different institutions. And those institutions have faltered and failed, which is why you saw proof of that within the last decade. And hopefully they're more open now
to invest in, because I mean, these people made that investment, right? That's something I think is important.
Yep.
That that champions, that people who are, no matter what, to be big in tennis, no matter where country you're from, someone has to invest in you.
Sure.
Whether it's time, whether it's money, and whatever the case may be. And we see that in America when it's players of color, they're not particularly interested in investing in you unless you have
right away.
Unless you show up, unless you have some resources behind you. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's why you see a lot of times when you see athletes who are people of color in these, they're somewhat from a privileged background.
Yep.
So
all right.
Fair point.
Is it my turn since Andreen shared a moment out of turn?
Yes, I did, because it was the same as Sean's, right?
Yep. Okay.
It was a nice segue.
I like it.
No, it was the same, right?
I'm just trying to make sure that we're all even here. That's all.
We are.
Oh, wow.
So my next moment comes from 2010, 2011, mostly 2011.
Remember this your number 3? Is this your number 3?
This is my number 3, yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So when Novak Djokovic was taking the tennis world by storm and nobody could stop that Serbian motherfucker, and he rightfully earned his name, the Serbian Devil, from me.
Yep.
This is the time period I'm in. He hadn't lost a match in 30,000 million billion years until the French Open semifinal of 2011, when we got that infamous finger wag when Federer took him out in the semifinals. That everybody thought that was going to be Nole's year. He was going to beat Rafa. Rafa was going to be dethroned. And Federer said, fuck all y'all for counting me out. And let me also remind you. So at the time, Novak was on a 43 match win streak. Yes, nobody could touch him. And Federer stopped it. But no, it's so, yes, this is a hater moment for me because I fucking loved it. And I fucking hate Novak. And that was amazing for me. I was like, yes, bitches, and I didn't care that, Federer was going to go to the final and get
beaten by Rafa.
It didn't matter because nobody could touch Novak. Nobody even thought that it. Nobody even gave any consideration that Federer was going to beat Novak. Nobody, even though Novak hadn't lost a match in nearly 6 months, and you know who had beat him last? Federer. So every time, my moment is collective. Every time, and it has been every time that Novak goes on one of his tears and nobody can stop him, you know who stops him? My fave.
Fucking Federer.
Hey, boo. Yes. So that's my moment.
I love that moment. But, you know, I mean, we have to talk about the press in that moment, too, though. They were so cruel and dismissive. Listen, I don't know how people say the press pays faves with Fed because
I should also mention that and Janina, you should also know that is also Diva Dow's one of Diva Dow's top decade moment. Okay, for him, this last decade has been when I can't deal with Nole. Fucking Federer needs to come along and handle that for me.
You know what? And that was a bittersweet moment. Let me tell you what. You remember, Janina? That was a bittersweet moment because that was one of those years where Rafa was having his, you know, Rafa was being a child that year because he was getting his ass beaten by Nole, and he was so depressed. And I think that was one of those years that he thought his Roland Garros title was in jeopardy. And I remember Uncle Tony, Tio Tony, watching that match and seeing that finger wag at the hen and said, "We got him. We're back in business."
Yep. This is what we wanted. Yep. This is it. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is it. I think God is real.
And that finger wag that Federer gave, that was about so much more than winning that match. It was about so much more. I love it. Federer is always so politically correct, even when he's being shady. Very rarely does he let his negative emotions shine through. And I don't mean, you know, the occasional racket smash or whatever, just the fuck you moments. You don't see those. And that was a fuck you moment. It was a fuck you moment to Novak. It was a fuck you moment to every tennis person out there that side-eyed him and wrote him off for the, you know, 1,000th time because Novak was taking over everything. And he's like, yeah bitches, it's me again. I loved that so much. I mean, clearly, I loved it so much.
Yes, you did.
That was beautiful. Okay,
that was a beautiful
I'm
moment.
done. Yes.
That was a good moment.
Wheels, we're back to you. We're gonna go in order this time. So we're down. We're getting down to the nitty. We're down to number 2.
No, my number 3.
Oh, okay.
You know you can't go.
You're right. I'm sorry.
So good. Just
so number 3 for me is it's gonna be gender specific, but it's not necessarily, but it's just Black girl magic. You know, I think it's like maybe because I'm in America, but let me just simply say that for this whole decade, it's just how tennis lights up in such a good and a positive and a joyous way. I mean, if you're human and you're not a hater and a racist, then these things won't work. This won't apply to you. You know, whenever Black girls or Black people in general in tennis is doing well. Even when Donald Young got in some of that action when he beat Ferrer, I think, at the US Open, he had a nice little run at the US Open at 1 year. But it's mostly, as always, Black women holding it down. Serena, Venus, Sloane, Maddie when she wants to count herself in that category. Sasha, Taylor Townsend, Coco. I mean, the good Coco. So, I mean,
the black Coco, not the white Coco.
The only Coco we acknowledge.
Dark chocolate, not the white one.
The only Coco I acknowledge. Okay. That just when they are around, and social media has given them a certain, you know what I mean, push and whatever. It just makes tennis seem so fun that you can see what tennis can be, and not just specifically Black girls, but black women. But when women of color, when those Asian girls, Lena, Shuish, and when they're allowed to be free and be themselves, they are lighting up and they're bringing so much to tennis than the same old cookie
Truth.
cutter. And they're expanding. They are refusing to be forced into the box that the tennis media wants for them. Sloan, you could take better pictures, but
Wear better wigs.
I mean, I gotta
know you
take
can afford
the
it.
good with the bad, but you refuse to be, that foil for Serena, though you don't like her, but it's cool. You refuse to be that. So I just think, so for me, this decade has been where we have allowed ourselves to see tennis players, and there have been black tennis players before. But again, my running theme sort of like is social media, how social media has sort of shaped this decade, but how these women have sort of like expanded and they've put the men to shame a lot of times. I think the men are dealing with Federer, they're in Federer's shadow. You know what I mean? Like Federer just encompasses all personality. But the women, it's usually the women of color, particularly the black girl magic, that has really made this tennis enjoyable and fun and festive. So, as always, invite people of color, people to
I'm
your
here
event.
for that. Here for it.
When we're there, we show up and we show out, and we make everything special. We just do. So that's my number 3. Andre.
So this is slightly related. My number 3 is for the decade is the emergence of Vika as a rival for Serena.
A real rival?
A real rival.
A real one, not a Pova manifested one.
I mean, the head-to-head kind of like they don't really.
I mean, the kind of doesn't. Not the head-to-head, not the head-to-head, but the emotional.
But the match, the quality of the match,
emotional landscape of the match, the emotional landscape of the match. I mean, for me, it's Vika, the shorts, the attitude, the potential Serena rival, but without being a racist asshole about it.
Yes,
it's importante.
Yes,
very,
very important that she respected Serena, was friendly with Serena, and gave us 2 very, very satisfying US Open finals, the 2012 and 2013. Like, let's just think about the quality of those matches and the fact that the tennis was so good and that there was a point in time when it was like slightly uncertain about who might win it. And then Serena overcame
2012. Tony,
I think I was out to dinner.
I'm surprised you still have a hairline.
I was out to dinner and I was like, I need someone to turn. I think I skipped out a little bit and went to the bar to check out. I mean, but let's just talk about competition, competitive matches, the fire, the energy, the fact that the media didn't know what to do with Vika. I mean, all of that, and the shorts. I love the Vika shorts represented there. The affection that people have for Kvitova is the affection I have for Vika. Because like I said, there's a certain type of athlete that I really enjoy, and which is part of the reason why for a really good while I actually enjoy Maria Sharapova. I don't need you to be nice. I don't really need that at all. I need you to show up and want to take names and be completely comfortable with that. And that was Vika. Vika, Reina on their matches and the journeys those have been. And let's be honest, even though they both have not been at their peaks in terms of winning things, even the Vika rematch at Indian Wells this year is one of the most memorable, emotional matches, right, of the year. Just in terms of the journey.
And this is from the beginning of the decade as well, right? Because they played 2010 Australian Open.
Yes.
So no matter wherever Vika sees Serena,
she's like, gotta get my game up.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, and that's the possibilities. I mean, when you think about things, when people talk about regrets and possibilities, that's really the rivalry for me that makes me sad about how it just sort of took a turn for both of them, but just because of life, right? They didn't, it just didn't all come together in the way that you
right. Vika was 2011 and 12.
Yes,
right?
that was her Vika year. Those were her Vika.
Yeah,
years.
right. Vika was really getting her shit together, right?
And then also 2015, right? Remember that was before she had that little moment before she had the child, right?
Right.
That was like, I think she might have done the double.
She beat Serena twice in Miami and Indian Wells.
So she had that really amazing period. So for me, the decade and the rivalry that was really interesting and intriguing for me was definitely Serena versus Vika. I thought they played really exciting tennis. And I love the battle. I love the noise. I loved all of it.
And they had to, and all of it, and they knew that you have to be a winner. Your shot had to be a winner. Yep. You can't be playing half-ass tennis.
Yep.
You cannot.
Yeah. So that was that's a real rival. Rival for Serena.
And a fun one.
Because it didn't have the shade. That was interesting because it didn't have the shade. That was actually a legitimate rivalry without that weird dynamic that people brought into the Pova.
Yeah, because they refuse to ever get in a press conference and act like it's a cat fight.
Yeah, exactly.
They refuse to engage in that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
No Christy versus Martina bullshit.
Yeah.
No Fire and Ice Patrick. No, it was just like, oh girl, it's just about the tennis. I am trying to beat her ass on the court, and she's trying to beat my ass on the court, and that's it.
Well, I think Tony makes a really good point that I think they've had really good, memorable matches every year, except maybe 2017, which is when I think Vika was still trying to recover, I think, from her baby.
And right? Serena was pregnant.
Yeah. So yeah, that's for me, that's number 3 of the decade. The highlight is the Vika Serena combo.
I like it. I like it.
Emotional but good.
What about yours?
Is it my turn?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, it's another Federer Novak moment.
It's number 2. You're now in her top 2s.
Oh, no. This is my 3.
She's on number 3.
My 3. It's a 2012 moment. It's a Cincinnati 2012 moment. There were 2 major things that happened there.
Oh yeah.
First thing, that was the first time I saw Venus live.
Aww.
And it was such an emotional experience for me. Most people know by now that, I grew up with the Williams sisters. I watched them, because there was nothing else to watch on TV. I grew up poor. We didn't have cable. Wimbledon took over my TV every summer, and that's the only channel that I could get. So I watched it, and that's how I learned about tennis. That's how I learned to love the game. And I got teased a lot because Black people didn't watch tennis, and it was, what are you doing? And then here came Serena and Venus to validate that for me, even though at that young age, I didn't know that that's, what it was. But I'm like, well, they're on TV, so it must be okay, beads and all. So, I mean, that's what started my love of tennis. And when I was in Cincinnati in 2012 and she walked down on court, I was excited to see her. I was so excited. I wasn't excited as excited. Of course, I was excited to see Serena, but I was more excited to see Venus, even though I'm a bigger Serena fan. I think for what Venus represents is just more to me in terms of tennis and in terms of women and life, really. I mean, Venus just seems bigger in that way. And I was so excited. And she walked out on court, and I just had all this emotion that came from nowhere. And I'm standing there crying, and I was by myself. Terry was there with me that year, but he wasn't sitting next to me. And I was like on center court, completely alone, but surrounded by all these people having this moment. And it was amazing. And I remember tweeting, that it was my first time seeing Venus and that I had tears. And Steph in the US was like, I get it. And I had chills. It was like everything was coming together in that moment. So then to round out that tournament for 2012 in Cincinnati was the finals. And I got to see Roger Federer bagel Novak. And I'm like going, this can't be real. Oh oh my God, am I getting to witness this live? Like, this can't be real. I was like, holy fuck, it's gonna happen. You know, he's up 5-love in the first, and I'm like, no fucking way. He's gonna fuck it up. You know, he's gonna win the set clearly, but he's gonna lose a game. And he won it, and I'm like, yes, praise the Lord. And then, you know, set 2 comes, and it's tight and it's close, because you know what, it was good tennis. Like, it wasn't that Novak was playing poorly. He wasn't. Federer was just on that next level shit. Novak caught up in the second set, which made it even better because it was much more competitive. And then Federer still won. And it was that was an amazing tennis year for me. I loved everything about it. That was also the year that I started to meet people from Twitter. So that was memorable. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's a bigger, as I talk about it, like that's a bigger year than I realized, because I met a lot of people. I think that was the first year. Tony wasn't there yet. I don't think anybody was there Steph was there. I think I may have met her, Arlene, if anybody remembers Arlene, and Rachel that you covered for sometimes, Andreen, the pediatrician. Tennis Outside, what's it called? And now Jen runs it. What's that website?
Oh yeah, it was tennis out is tennis Inside Out or something like that.
No, that's Val. Outside the Ball. I don't know. I don't know, but I met Rachel. You know, so that was the beginning of meeting people from Twitter. You did. You used to cover tournaments for her sites.
Yeah, I can't remember it now.
Yeah, 2012 was great. 2012 was
a good year.
Amazing. It was a good year.
Oh, maybe 2012 is the best year of the decade for you for tennis wise.
Maybe.
The best US Open finals, women's final match in a long time. So my number 2, apparently, we're so different and yet so similar. So my number 2 for the decade, it's really been the growth of the Federer fever. I mean, I would say I thought people figured Federer was done in 2008, right? And then 2009 he won the French Open, and then he almost got the Federer Slam. Thanks, Del Potro. Fuck you. And
so emotional.
And
I think we figured out Reels' emotion.
So
the fuck off emotion.
But I mean, I think after 2010 and won in the Australian Open 2010, people figured that was it. He was done. He was finished. Finito. He was done complete. 2012, yeah, he just eked out and won Wimbledon, and he was trying and whatever the case may be. But with Federer and the growth of social media, Federer is like a legit thing for everybody. Federer is pop culture. You know, Federer can sell out stadiums in Mexico City. You know, and Federer is just like everywhere. And now ATP and tennis on a whole has no reason. I think Federer was doing being a businessman. So he went to Quito, he went to Buenos Aires, and he went to Mexico City to see whether or not Laver Cup can go to those places.
Basically.
In the coming years, right? Let me see if my presence, what that can do. And let's see how that's going to go. You know what I mean? Because he's a short of a market in US and Europe. But I mean, just like how I think, I mean, love him or hate him, Federer is the definition of men's tennis. Mm-hmm. And for a part on brand for tennis itself. He's quintessential that he has that look of like that classic country, you know, privileged youth, etc., you know, of what tennis is. His movement is very much conservative, fluid, etc., etc. He doesn't define the whole aggressive style, rah, 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 and the court, whatever it case may be. And first of all, the man got 2 sets of twins. That's just decade defining in and of itself, okay? I mean, that's, you know, that's like 4 aces in a row. But I just feel that within this, I mean, it's just so Federer has taken the sport of tennis and made it less of a niche brand. I mean, it still is, but he is opening it up to the public. I mean, he is a mass, like he's everywhere. And, you know, just like, I think, you know, that the sport should capitalize on this and not just, he has opened, it's time for them to step their game up. What is their plan to use this energy that Federer has. And despite not, winning as on a tear, being the player of the decade, it's Federer that's driving the tour. I mean, remove Federer from it, you're not going to Federer and anybody in the finals is going to bring numbers. It will bring the numbers. I mean, it's there for itself. So, but people just still enjoy seeing Federer and love Federer. And I really think that he, when he leaves the sport, apparently he isn't planning to. But maybe even forever. But but the body always wins.
Always.
So
always.
For me, it's been, as a Federer fan, I have been content to have just like, when Federer got 2012, he got that Wimbledon. I was like, that's the most I can ask for this man. I mean, fuck you, Andy Murray, for stealing that Olympic gold medal, and fuck you, Delpo, again, for stealing that Olympic gold medal. Delpo, you didn't need to do all of that and still fail. Why do all of that and still fail in the end? But I mean, Federer still endures, and he is a joy for me to watch all the time, every time. And despite all these young kids coming up, it is the Federer win that they want. If it didn't beat Nole, it is the Federer win, because to beat Federer, to beat Nole, and to beat Rafa, it is a physical thing, right? You just have to outlast them.
It's not as special.
You break your body doing it. Dominic Thiem.
Break your body months later.
Months later, okay. Dominic, listen to me. Dominic Thiem ain't making the French Open final this next year. Okay, just put that out there. He has not given that body time to heal, so he won't be in press room number 1. Trust me on that.
Leave him be.
But it is Federer. Federer has endured, and that in of itself is really remarkable. And the man is 38. He's still here, and he is still playing quality on-brand tennis. And it is the kind of tennis that you can still look to and still say, this is a good thing. This is a remarkable thing. We need to copy this thing. There is no wonder why a lot of these young children right about now, the generation after the generation of Federer, that they have a one-handed backhand. Remember, we thought that was a thing that was dead and over it. It's never going to see it again. The two-hand was going to take over. And Federer has made that trend. That trend died with him, and then he bring it back and resurrected it. That's just make Federer not only the player of the decade, Nole, he is the player of the century.
Oh shit! That. Damn. Well, all right.
It is. Harriet.
All right, Andreen, what you got?
That was number 2.
That's number 2.
So for me, my number 2 is now I'm a serious girl. I don't like to be led by my emotions too much. But I have to say that I have a tennis crush. That's brand new. And
if it's any of my French boys, bitch, you're dying.
I'm
walking to LA and I'm gonna beat you and punch you in the face.
Not not that kind of a crush, but a little bit of like the joy of discovering something new, like a kid. And I have to say,
this summer is going to be something messy.
Not even messy. Not even something really. I mean, like it's like so small and beautiful, but like for me this year, it was wonderful to see Coco. It's Coco. I love Coco. I love Coco in like a pure way.
She's your baby Yoda, isn't she?
Yeah, she's like. I'm like I love Coco in the way that I want to protect Coco. Like somebody said something mean about Coco, I stopped following them.
Ooh, Andreen doesn't do that, you guys.
Like I love Coco. I love just her light, her energy. I'm getting teary as I say it because she's like, young Black girlhood, and she's just been fun to watch. I'm super emotional about it, but and it's my number 2.
Oh man, what do we get for number 1?
I know.
Oh my God.
And then I took my, it's so funny. I took my, there's somebody I always go and stay with in London who made the whole thing possible. And I always stay with my cousin, and he was like, I want to go to Wimbledon with you. And it was so cool because we got to go to Wimbledon together and see Coco. Like
Nice.
it was like, because listen, that's how Black people watch tennis that don't watch tennis. Like call you up and then be like,
if there's someone of color there, there's someone of color there,
Let me go
you
see
know what I
them.
mean?
doing it.
Like they're like Coco. I mean, like the whole time the Coco run was happening, that's when Black people pay attention. My mom's like, "What about this Coco girl?"
Yeah, no, you're right though. You're right. And it's what's so important about that little piece though is that's what brings new people to the game. And we need
fall in love
that.
with that one.
Yes.
And follow
Black
the
girl
whole
magic.
trail. The whole trail.
Yes, Black girl magic.
And so, I've had an ongoing love affair with tennis, but tennis has been sort of intensely a part of my life for the last 10 years, but it was waning. It really was. And I was refreshed by Coco because I'm so like annoyed and cynical about so many things, but she was like a breath of fresh air for me this year. And so being able to just sit and listen, I was watching her take a beating. I saw her loss, but it was just wonderful to be there and see her and the excitement and the interest and people going, I'm seeing Coco. I'm seeing Coco. This is what the audience was saying. Like, I'm seeing Coco. It was just beautiful. And it's like, it was reminiscent of like early days of falling in love with tennis just in general. So for me, like the number 2 moment of the decade is the emergence of Coco. And in a period when like Black girls are perceived in very dubious ways, it's just been really lovely to see Coco. And then just the way that she that she beat Venus, but then she was so thankful and be able to tell Venus how important she would matter. All of that, how important she was to her. And but then Venus also owning that moment, like, listen, you're not coming to take anything, all of that, all of the things.
You can take whatever you want. It's all yours to have. Yeah,
exactly. So and just the wild excitement for Coco and the joy. And so it just reminded me that, when people are sitting around trying to fix tennis isn't messed up. It's just that they haven't found people that they are gravitating towards. And when they do, you see it. And, Real said it in number 2 with Federer. You love him, hate him. People are drawn to him. Same thing with Coco. Love her, hate her. People love her and they will show up to see her. So when people love a player, they will climb mountains to see them.
I didn't even think Mexico City had all that kind of people, but apparently it does.
Right?
Quito is going through a recession. People showed up in Quito. They literally had a riot demonstration in Quito the week before Federer showed up.
Yeah.
I thought it wasn't even going to happen, but I'm telling you,
it's
Federer
things we do.
It's beautiful when you're loved. It's beautiful when a player is loved, and what it does is it makes people give up and move past their fears to do something they never imagined they would do, like Janina said, and going to Cincy for the first time. And there are people who showed up at the Washington DC tournament to see Coco for the first time and thought about, like, let me find this thing that's happening in my backyard. That's what's magical about having a player that like gets you out of your comfort zone. And so Coco is a wonderful surprise. I saw her a little bit early on in US Open period when she was playing juniors, but her bursting on the scene and representing just like youthful Black girl energy in such a wonderful way, and her parents and all of it. I love all of it. And so you can't tell me nothing about Coco, okay?
Nope. We won't have it. We won't have it.
Right.
She will be my new Monfils, but
I've not heard anybody say that they don't love Coco yet. It'll be interesting because there's no reason to not.
Because they say it in code. They say it in code.
Yeah,
well, I believe that. But,
they say it in code.
I'm here for Coco. I want to share somebody else's moment.
Yep.
Pablo sent me a message.
It's PG because Pablo is.
It's PG. It's even serious, right?
Okay.
Who is this Pablo creeping in my DMs? You know what? Okay, I'm gonna say first of all that we covered this extensively, and this didn't cross my mind. So this is interesting that I didn't think of it. Not that Pablo did, that I didn't, and that none of us have mentioned it. So he is saying that one of the highlights of the decade for him, and it wasn't a good moment, was Ben Rothenberg's article in the New York Times, body shaming Serena.
Body shaming. But that's also one of our best episodes, I would say.
It was one of our best episodes. It's one of our most listened to episodes. But just so that we get Pablo's thought out there, he said, that I think that marked a change in how Black female athletes, especially Serena, got reported, and he got away with it for a while, but has shown his spots recently. It marked a change. It was not acceptable to print this shit anymore. So that being said, he also said, and this for me, this was the biggest takeaway. It revealed how many people, he mentions the US Open final versus Osaka too, but I think it starts to go back, just to tie everything together, to that article that Ben wrote, how behind the scenes racist people can be in the things that they say that are racist. And they don't even, I don't even know if I want to go as far as to say that they don't believe that they're being that way, but I don't know. People show their true colors. When things like this happen, people show their true colors. And did this moment come up for any of you guys? Because it didn't for me. The Osaka one, Serena did, because it's more recent, but I had kind of forgotten about that article.
I remembered it. It didn't come up. It was like something it didn't make my list, but I thought about it. Because I was thinking also just about like emblematic podcast moments for us. I remember that podcast, and I think what it revealed to me was that, because I thought that we made a really good case for our point of view, and I actually felt like we left that podcast not having changed Ben's mind. Like, I don't think he thought there was anything wrong with the way he had characterized the body issue at all. And so what struck me about that was that you can have a dialogue with a person, but I'm often willing to be moved. I really am, but I didn't think he was willing to, he wasn't willing to have his mind change because his priorities were really different. I think his priorities were about maybe clicks, or maybe just like finding the most controversial angle. But I think also that I just realized that we just saw the world in fundamentally different ways. And like what we were trying to communicate to him, he couldn't see. And I don't know if he couldn't see what he was trying to say, because maybe that's what it was. But I just thought that
I was totally stuck in the middle. If anyone hasn't heard that,
well,
I remember.
Well, what was interesting,
and I caught shit from everybody for it, and I'm still in the middle.
What I thought was interesting was that everyone at the New York Times and everyone everywhere felt it was okay to have it, first off, a man write a piece on women's bodies, whether positive, negative, or in between. That it should not have been a man, and I'm just saying that just the optics of that alone was problematic. And that article actually generated them to have a public editor. I think came out as a result of that article, because of the further that it came out. It would mention.
Pablo just mentioned that.
Claudia Rankin had to write a whole, use her literary talent to write a whole piece to rebuff that mass and madness. And I think as a result of that, for me, it's like you're right. It's not even just like, I think, as Andreen says, like we're coming from two different point of view and not wanting to be moved. But for me, it was emblematic of just how within this time, again, because of social media, where different voices are able to put themselves on a platform and people have access to it. Whether it would be get a bazillion clicks or not, that people's voice can be literally heard, right? Now, in this space, that how many of us, that we're able to say, like, hey, this thing is not okay. And just this article alone was able to say to show how we deal with these issues so differently, and how we are people with, I guess for me, it's just like how when we're dealing with these issues, that how one side just refuses to hear anything.
I know.
at
And also
all.
refuses to acknowledge their power in crafting and shaping
Right.
people's perceptions. Because there's a reporter, I won't put her on blast, but she complains about Venus often. And I think to myself, you are a reporter. I know that you think of yourself as a little individual, but you are a reporter reporting on tennis, and your perception carries a lot of weight. So even though this person is annoying you and you're thinking of it as a personal interaction, it's actually not a personal interaction at all. Your point of view has weight. And so so I often think about it just also with even just reporters and that understanding that they are how they portray a player is often personal for them. And it's the player that makes them feel comfortable that they then write in a very particular way. And so sometimes you have to be really careful about how you are positioning your story and how you are talking about people who are different from you, because maybe yes, that player smiles, and so that puts you at ease, and so therefore you can write a certain way. And maybe the player is not smiling, and so that you're confused. Remember, that's the issue with the woman on the British tennis podcast show. She had a weird reaction with Sloane. She couldn't understand Sloane because Sloane didn't fit into her pre-existing box, I think, of a Black girl. She wasn't angry. She wasn't fired up. There are all these like categories that I think really easily people slot Black girls in. And Sloane for a while didn't fit. And so she was like, I'm just so confused by Sloane. And But she had the weight of her podcast and the weight of her title. And so she could characterize Sloane in all kinds of ways. That was, I think, problematic. And she didn't acknowledge that because she was just coming at it from this very personal space. So I don't know. I just think that people have to recognize their power on a platform such as the New York Times. And that you don't just get to sort of like ramble about a feeling you have, which is what we can do here. Is that what your observations have weight and carry a lot more, I don't know, a lot more ears and a lot more eyes. And so you should be a little bit more careful.
But it's also added to that, it's also how exclusive those rooms are, right? Like those rooms don't think how lack of diversity, and true diversity where that someone can say something and it matters. Because white women didn't come out of that article looking good either. The players who he mentioned, the white players he mentioned, were upset with that interview, with that piece itself.
Because he knew he painted them in a not so negative light.
And that goes to like how it is that a man could have been the one to decide that he was going to write this piece. It was just like, what?
Well, it goes to show also that there's a lack of coverage in tennis, period. I mean, there's not a female writer that I know of that works for the New York Times.
Yes, there is.
I mean, I think
Clary and him are not the only one there.
There are occasional ones that write for it, but I think the consistent ones that cover tennis is probably those two in your mind. But I also think I think at the time though, I mean, it might not have been an attractive point of view for the women, for the white women, but it was consistent, right? It was a consistent one, which didn't generate a lot of blowback because white women. That is an issue for white women about the idea of, Black female bodies have always been perceived or in a certain way, right? There's always been characterized in a very masculine way, particularly within sport, right? So the fact that white women said, I don't want to be that, that's not as challenging a thing to see out in public, because what white women are really admitting is that they don't want to carry the mantle that Black women carry. We get that. So that's why Aga can say, I don't want to get muscular. And everyone understands what that means. That's a code, right? That's a feminist code, right? That's a feminine-esque code for her. Like, I want to continue.
But they have but they also have a recourse, right?
Yeah.
They could get to him directly because he mentioned they reach out to him and say, no, we're not talking to you anymore.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And he accepted that as a critique. I'm just like, oh, I get that. But had the same thing happened to a Black woman, that would have been another story ready to write. Yeah. She doesn't even get to defend herself. she's not even able to defend herself. She has to take that and move along.
Well, could you Janina said she was in the middle. Just remind our audience so they maybe want to get back to it and listen. Why did you perceive yourself as being in the middle before we move on?
I just didn't necessarily agree that everything was intentional as far as being negative. I just didn't. My gut reaction to reading the piece was very, very different from yours and Reel's and Karen's. It was very different. But I also know that I take things for face value. Yeah. Often and first. That's who I am. It's what I do. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, even though I don't think that wasn't a situation of the benefit of the doubt for me. I mean, I'm just saying as a person, that's who I am. But I tend to read something and go, this is what they said. So this is what they must mean, because that's what I do. Because I say, you know, you expect people to be honest the way that you're honest. I do. And so it was difficult for me to read into all of those things and kind of paint it in a negative light after having so many conversations with Ben outside of Twitter, you know, and knowing someone on a certain level. It was just weird. It's just weird because I expect people to say what they mean. I always expect that from everybody. So I'm always a little bit surprised when you start to dig deeper and you go, fuck, you know, God, like, why'd you do that, man? Like, you know, because honestly, if you want to say, even though I know that it's not right, but in my head, if you want to say like, you know, Serena's body is ugly and masculine and nobody wants it, then say that. I mean, that's how my mind operates. So that's why it's always difficult for me. I think oftentimes when we have conversations where you have to go a little deeper, and I hope I'm not painting myself in a shallow light because I don't think I am. I just always want people to be real. That's what I want. That's what I expect because that's who I am. So when I have
all be me, Janina. I'm sorry.
You're right. You're right. But I really think that's where it comes from. To answer your question, Andreen, I just expect to be able to take something at face value. I mean, I'm older now. I'm wiser now. I know that people don't operate that way. And honestly, you know, something that I'm not proud of is I've learned a lot just from talking to you guys more about, I didn't, you know, we've talked about before, I didn't grow up the way that you guys grew up. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood with my white family, and I did not experience a lot of racism until I was an adult. Very little did I experience. So I'm not familiar with all of the coded language. So that's, you know, that's something
hold
that
on. Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question of distinction? Yeah. Are you saying that you didn't pick up on any racism as a child growing up, as opposed to didn't necessarily experience it? Because you then said coded language.
Because I'm saying I didn't. The racism that I experienced as a child, and it was very little, was very blunt. It was being called a nigger. Things like that. I don't ever remember subtle things. I don't remember experiencing any of that until I was an adult. So because of that, I think it's not my instinct to take something there. Whereas it might be more someone who has experienced that their entire life. That's what I mean. I don't automatically think in terms of race.
Well, I mean, I think in many ways what would and that's a fair point. I think in many ways though, for us, what we do, or at least I think one of the things that Reels and I talk about oftentimes is that I think most people don't understand that they are always working in coded language. I don't think it's not always obvious and intentional.
Right.
I think what happens is people internalize values and internalize ideas that they don't challenge.
Yeah.
And so and I think oftentimes that's what happens with writers that now are experiencing pushback, is that they will articulate something feeling as if they're coming at some objective distance, and someone will say, "Oh no, no, no," and they'll be like, "Of course I'm writing it from this place of, complete reporterly distance," and I'm like, "No, you are not. First of all, the idea of objectivity is false, and you have been telling yourself that for years, and because you've been in a room with the same people and they've patted you on the back and said, yes, you're right. Now others are listening to you and talking back to you and telling you, no, that's not right. You've actually are revealing a lot of bias right now, and a lot of unconscious bias probably. And so I think that piece had a lot of unconscious bias reflected in both the writer and many of the people commenting. And many of the players commenting. And I think when you unmasked it a little bit, I think the players themselves saw it unmasked and go, ooh.
Yeah.
And that's why they decided they didn't want to talk anymore.
For sure.
They were, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something you're walking around being conscious of all the time. You just internalize these ideas about womanhood. And then it's like, and then suddenly on the written page, it becomes very obvious and naked. And suddenly it's like, ugh, I don't know if that's what I intended.
One of the things I would say in regards to that article and articles like it is that those folks, and we saw that as a result of the US Open last year with the Serena Osaka debacle, that it isn't about truth that matters, right? No. It's that they're able to, and these writers know it, is that they're exploiting a known cachet, a known what's the word? Social media algorithm.
Yeah.
You trash Black people and it produces clicks. And as much as people, as much as whiteness likes to present itself as being innocent, the standard, the thing, and the innocence, it is specific, it is set up diametrically opposed to anti-Blackness. Whiteness is a reflection of anti-Blackness. Hence why everything whiteness holds dear to it, it points to anti-Blackness, as Blackness as being the other, and it doesn't have that thing. So it says it's not a race, and then it is a race because they created the system that way. So that's, I think, one of the frustrating thing about this situation is that those things is that you can't even get to the conversation, because we could have had a healthy discussion about players and body. They're athletes, right? We talk about weight issues and bodies all the time, but we can't even get to that because we have to deal with the racism at the very beginning. There isn't a language, because the language that is being used is so defamatory and so problematic. And we can't even get to a baseline, because everyone then begins to argue about when people of color saying, oh, this is not okay. People are like, oh, why is that not okay? This is okay, perfectly fine. And then we don't get to the substance of the matter. But Pablo, thank you very much for bringing such a...
Yeah, you got a big chunk of the podcast, boo-boo.
Our silent backer. It's Pablo. So, Janina, you mentioned your number 2, right?
Are we on number 2s? Is it my turn for number 2? Okay. I'm ready for my number. Yeah, I can go for number 2. So okay. I'm going to do a flip as I'm sitting here looking, because I was going in chronological order, but I'm going to flip my last 2. So 2018 was a good year personally for tennis and in my tennis life. So that was the first year I covered Cincinnati in the press room. Ooh, look at you. And that was the first year that I got to meet Chad and Peter and all the fun times that we had in 2018. However, there's a bittersweet because of the podcast, right? Again, it just keeps coming back to the podcast. There's a piece of that was very fun and eye-opening, but also a little bit bittersweet. If I could just, pat my own back for a moment, there was a time.
Look out.
Oh, yeah. Look out. Hey, no shade to you guys. Total shade to the fucking WTA. But anyways, I introduced Quay to the world. And Quay was not in the press room before Janina asked Serena about Quay. Let that be known. And it was fun. And, Serena walked in that room and you could have heard a fucking needle drop. It was so quiet. People are afraid of that woman. And everyone was so serious. I'm like, oh my God, fuck this. So, yeah, I totally, Serena laughed. I got Serena Williams to laugh in press.
I hope you know that Quakeway now have a Twitter page, an Instagram page. Quakeway's out here making money. I think she has animation coming out. And what do you have, Janina?
I don't know. That's why I'm saying it's bittersweet. I get no fucking credit.
Okay.
Nothing. But it was a fun moment. Chad got in trouble for it. That was also a fun moment. I'm not gonna blow his spot up. The tweet heard around the world that got him called to the principal's office. It's all good, but that was fun. That was fun for 2018.
Oh, wonderful. So my number one. Now we got down to the brass.
To the nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty. So my number one is. I don't know if it's bittersweet, but whatever. But number one is the longevity, the ever enduring of Venus Ebony Star motherfucking Williams. I'm telling you, people. Venus has taken me to the highs and the lows, but she is out here doing the damn thing. I mean, Venus should have been stopped and washed out in 2009, 2010. I'm going to tell y'all a secret. I don't like Kim Clijsters. Don't like any of the Belgians. I mean, I prefer her more than I like Justine, but I don't like Kim Clijsters. I don't care how sweet y'all want to say she is and whatever. I think Leighton Hewitt did her dirty, and on that we could agree. She can call me, and I could go put sugar in his tank. She could call me for that kind of shit. I'm done with that. But after that, Kim will go part ways. We ain't gonna say anything. But 2010, beginning of the decade, Venus was there, gonna snatch that US Open title. And the win and Kim Clijsters fucked her up.
That's true.
They fucked her up again in 2014. And I know I have a good friend who is a Kim Clijsters fan, and I know he only liked Kim Clijsters because Kim has kept the Williams sisters honest. The Williams sisters has kept Kim to 3 majors, but that we're gonna have that conversation, have we? Or 4, I think it is, or something like that. They have retired her twice, and she trying to come out of the grave again. But but this ain't about Kimberly. This is about Venus Williams. That Venus got Sjogren disease in 2011, and that girl is still here. She is coming for your faves. She's there. And she's played. I mean, she's
almost 40.
She's almost 40. And that just goes to tell you that here is a woman who have achieved everything, right?
Better Latino up for mixed doubles. They'll have a combined age. If they played at the US Open, when is Federer's birthday? They would have a combined age of 80.
Okay. I mean, listen to me. Y'all think Federer and Serena is fire? Do I think someone should really put them in a room and have a discussion with them? Pick me for that interview. But Venus and Federer on the court should be something magical. On the same side of the court, I'm telling you, y'all will sell out every stadium. Y'all will sell out Carnegie Hall if you just walk on the stage. I'm telling you. Just putting out there, people. But Venus, I mean, she hasn't been collecting the trophies as you want him to. But she got some people together. But Alizé Cornet, you know how it feels to be in the other side of Venus Williams. No matter how Venus could be 45 and she's still snatching Alizé Cornet's neck. Still gonna put that rope around her neck. But Venus is still out here. I mean, there were many times when she has a disease that makes her being an athlete at the top of her field nearly impossible. But yeah, she's out there. She give up meat, girl. I don't know how you do that, but that alone, it should be a feather in your cap. But she said, and in 2000, a specific moment, 2017, is it? Right? I am correct, right?
Yep. for Wimbledon.
And I
Or
should also
Australian
put a
Open?
caveat that you know that this is why I can never get on the Serena bandwagon. Ever. I mean, I'll fight for her, but you see, like to be like how y'all being out here with that Serena, nope, never happened. Never happened. Ever. Chad, you're no longer invited to the Venus meetings. You're not. I saw you slipping for Serena.
So
Let me tell you something. When Serena snatched Coconut, and that look on Coconut face was enough to even send me. That was enough alone. When Coconut realized this old bitch beat my ass and beat me really good. But when Venus did a triple pirouette and the pure joy and excitement coming out of Venus, I mean, that is the decade. That is the moment of the decade. Nothing else can top that. And here is a woman who is well past her prime out here doing the daggone thing, showing you what hard work and define success differently. We don't always get to define success by winning and bringing a big check. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just that success can be just living every day and doing the thing that you love at the best of your ability. And Venus Ebony Star Williams shows us that. And I know, and I'm putting it out to you, heard it first. Venus is going to retire this next year if she not already retired. Because I'm telling you, whenever Venus is living her best life off of the court, she's having a horrible time on the court.
You know, that moment where Venus beat Coco and did that amazing twirl, that was on Tony's epic list too.
And let me tell you something. Venus is out here, Tony. You don't get to mention Venus' name. Not in my moment. No, you don't. You don't.
Listen, Tony had many moments. He can fit into every single one of these.
Tony, you won't get this. You won't get this. Venus fans are very selfish. And honestly, and we all know, let me tell you, Venus fans, all Venus true fans, is that we still remember all those matches Venus lost to Serena and be like, this makes me happy.
Those gifts.
Why is she being that? It's insane. But you know what? It's beyond the decade, but 2008, and 2001, we know Venus sent a message to Serena and told her in those finals, but you know I'm the better player. But you know what? You want to be number one? Girl, go ahead and have it. Go ahead and have it.
Oh my God, Andrew, what's your number one?
Longevity is my number one. So
longevity of Venus. All hail the queen.
But let me just finish up by saying this one thing that Venus is gonna retire next year because she's doing all kind of projects, and Venus is talking and smiling and laughing and living her best life off of course. We've never seen that in the 20-something years we've seen Venus. Venus is, you know what I'm saying? Venus be going in press conferences and being like,
she's in a transition plan. That's what
I mean, no, Venus is on a TV show, morning show. Listen to me. Look out for 2020. Venus is going to be taking the airways. Venus, bring on people of color, okay? Because I know how you are, girl. You're my people, but let's get a rainbow up in there, okay? And diversity of ideas is not diversity, Venus. Don't be Apple.
Oh, you're a mess.
All right, Andreen.
So yes, my number one moment. I mean, it's keeping with the theme of liveness. So in the decade, this is a moment that makes reels bitter, but it's emotional for lots of different reasons, which is that
you see my face right now because I know you're about to be on some bullshit.
I know.
I can see your face and I can't even see your face.
Oh my God, you know me of Leo Genius's spot with her All Lives Matter stuff. Okay.
I mean, Venus is complicated. We know that. I admit it all the fault, but I'm telling you what.
Complicated, respectable sister. Okay.
Exactly.
Listen, Venus is like raised like old school Caribbean people. That's how it is.
Yeah. And it's weird, right? Because she's so American.
I get you, Venus. I got you. Anyway, so top moment of the decade for me is it involves a couple of things that I didn't think I was going to do, which is why it's my top moment. I always wanted to go to the Olympics. I thought it would be super cool to do it. And then they decided I'm going to make the Olympics possible in London at Wimbledon. What? Of course I should do this. And the tickets were easy enough to get. And I was continually surprised. Why are these tickets so easy to get? Well,
because no one wants to see tennis at the Summer Games.
I mean, London for its own ridiculousness and its own silliness. However, my top moment of the decade is watching Federer versus Del Potro at the London 2012 semifinal match. Why? Because I needed to pee for 3 hours. And that motherfucking third set did not have a damn tie break. And I didn't know what to do. And I was like, if I leave,
a match point might happen, right?
Somebody's gonna break, and then I won't be able to get back in.
Oh my God.
So I held my pee for about 90 minutes. And I was sitting.
Shout out to your bladder.
Send it to my bladder, right? And I was sitting in the crowd with, I think, Kobe Bryant and a bunch of basketball players had shown up to watch this match because, hey, they thought they had time on their hands too.
Let's just say we went to this famous place called Wimbledon and we watched this kind of famous dude called Federer and have an Instagram moment. And
it's going to be done in like 90 minutes. And this shit just kept going on. And it was such an emotional match. So, like, the peaks and the valleys in that match. And Del Potro doing that Del Potro thing, which now that we know that Del Potro knows how to beat Federer in these peak moments, it is amazing that Federer came through that match. And we all looked at each other and said, he's not winning the gold. And I was just like, but
unleash Murray on us.
I know, unleash Murray. But it was like, it was just great because it was just all of those things. And then I was walking around the grounds, y'all, and I saw all these random athletes just posing and taking pictures. And then after that emotional match, when you can leave and there's that little section where the players usually come out and they can wave before they go into the media center. And the audience is still feeling the weird vibe of that match. And so we come out and Federer decides to come out and do a little wave. And he happens to be talking and his back is turned to us. And, of course, it's just a silly moment, but he reaches up and he's scratching his back and he's showing his underwear and everybody starts yelling and whistling.
America, come get your man because these perverts out here.
It's just the little details that make everything so important.
I mean, Federer showed up in a towel just to watch the chat in that Lever Cup, and people just lost their fucking mind.
But the whole day was just surreal. And everybody, it's just like this wonderful moment that just all encapsulated just this bizarre. First of all, it was just kind of bizarre for tennis at the Olympics. And then to have it's just all of it was just sort of weird. But this match just was emblematic. And now it became a theme, right? Matches that went on for too damn long. Yep. But that I think is still one of my most enduring moments because I was like, I'm sitting here watching an Olympics match inside Wimbledon because I had never actually been able to. I'd gone to Wimbledon in 2009, but I'd just lined up and I'd never been on center court. So to be able to get a center court ticket and
it be the Olympics, that's pretty impressive.
It's freaking ridiculous. And I just kept pinching myself going, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then to look left and see like Kobe Bryant like watching, I was just like the whole thing was just bizarre and weird. And then Federer's ability to fucking get a break. Me needing to pee. It was just all.
Well, you know what? Well, first of Federer's shout out to Federer's ability to not be broken because you're there.
Listen.
When does that ever happen, right?
And then it just wrapped up the moment. Then the very next day, when I thought that I assumed that Del Potro was gonna lose, and then I'm watching the freaking like gold medal match, and Federer hadn't known that Del Potro had won and beaten Nolan.
Well,
and out comes Del Potro. I'm getting the bronze. And Federer was like, yay! And they're all ignoring Murray in the middle.
You know Del Potro has a story about that, right? When Del Potro was just like, Federer was just like, I thought Nolan was going to come out here.
Oh, God. I mean, it was all of my goodness and my pettiness wrapped up in one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good moment because it was, it was a pinnacle of travel, but then also just like a fun experience to finally see Federer win a medal, because that was like another damn achievement.
A singles medal. Because I think Federer defined himself in 2008 with Stan.
With the doubles, yeah, but it
With
was,
the doubles.
singles medals are always a bigger deal for people. So,
I'm just gonna let me tell y'all something. Tennis at the Olympics is a vanity project. I don't care what anybody tells me. It's a vanity project. Because let me tell you something. Federer and Stan beat the Bryant brothers.
Great. What was fun?
The Bryant brothers have been
Olympics is such an outlier for tennis, right? I mean, I think it generally is on the men's side. I think on the women's side, it holds water for very much so. But anyway, I think my top two moments have involved Wimbledon, I think. But I don't know. I think this decade has been Wimbledon-esque. I think Wimbledon, I feel like it's been a kind of, I think that's been sort of one of the
Wimbledon has been the tournament that has endured. All the others have been kind of shitty up and down.
Period.
I mean, but, I think Janina said it when we were younger. I mean, when I was watching tennis on a freaking single channel, it was Breakfast at Wimbledon. That's what it was.
It's true. Yep. On HBO.
It was Breakfast at Wimbledon. That is it. It wasn't Breakfast at Roland Garros. We don't even know what that is.
Right. So my number one moment also centers around Olympics, but it's more about it's less about the tennis and it's more about the company. In 2016, Andreen and I got to meet in person for the first and only time. So just a little, Andreen and I have been talking on Twitter since at least 2009. So this was a long time coming. And I had been there and I'm outside and I'm waiting for her because she's like, I'm coming. So I go downstairs. I want to greet her at the door. I'm so excited. I get to meet Andreen face to face. And I'm like, what the fuck is this bitch? And I call her. She's like, I'm in the room. I'm like, how'd you get past me? So I go upstairs and, she's in there and we hug and it's wonderful and great. Like it's supposed to be. And we go to the tennis and it's during the 2016 Olympics. No one goes to Cincinnati because they're all at the Olympics and it was too close. Like no one was coming. So the field was very narrow and the crowds were way down, which was actually nice. So we go to the tennis and there's tons of rain. The rain delays that year were insane. And let me tell you something. Tony is the master of getting the table when it's going to rain. And I had so much fun watching the Olympics at the wine bar with Andreen and Tony while we were waiting for fucking rain delays to be over to watch the tennis that we were there to see. We watched we watched. I remember specifically watching the races.
Yep.
And me cheering for the American and Andreen.
You mean track and field?
Yeah, track and field. And,
okay, there's a lot of races at the Olympics.
Sorry, like races. I'm like, what do I call that? And I'm like excited for the Americans, and Andreen's like, fuck that, go Jamaica. And Tony's like, I want everyone to win because that's who Tony is. And one of the best moments. We're in another rain. God, there were so many rain delays. That was the year, Andreen, remember that Grigor and was it Marin Cilic finished at like after midnight and we were like dying. And I was like, we should just leave. And you're like, nope, we're staying till the bitter end. Because the rain never seemed like it was going to stop. And it stopped. And, we got to finish the match courtside and I was really tired, but whatever. So we're watching the mixed doubles gold medal match. And remember, people, it was like MAGA versus Obama. It was Venus and Raji fucking can't play Rom.
And y'all are trying to trigger me onto.
Coco and Jack Sock.
Yes.
And there was tons of people. There were a ton of people watching this. And you know what else was funny about this whole experience? Do you remember how so every time there was a rain delay, we went back to this same space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Bethany Maddox Sands. It wasn't Coco. It was Bethany Maddox Sands and Jack Sock. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I just hate Coco so much. I wanted it to be her. Anyways, every time we would go back to this specific place to get drinks and food and watch the Olympics on TV, we would change the channel. We would go up and people are like watching something like, you got to put the Olympics on.
What's wrong with you people? Right. The Olympics is it.
Why are we? Well, because they default to center court. Like, why are we watching it rain? What the fucking Olympics on? So we're watching. We get on to see the gold medal match, and it's almost over, and they're in that tie break, and we all feel like Venus and is clearly carrying the team and the better of the two, and we think that maybe they're gonna do it, they're gonna win, and then they don't. But the nice part about them not winning was the level of disappointment surrounding us. I didn't expect it. I didn't. Do you remember, Andreen? Like, everybody was cheering for them.
Yeah.
And even though it was like two sets of Americans,
there was really only one.
Well, yeah, but everybody was cheering for Venus. And I mean, we can pretend that they were cheering for Venus and her partner that wasn't really playing, but really it was Venus, So it was.
Well, we know what that district votes for when the election comes around.
It's true. But it fucking sucked that they lost. But it was really nice to know that it was nice to watch it with Andreen and Tony, and it was nice to feel the Venus love. Mostly because there were some assholes there. There always are. We were in the middle of, fucking Southern Ohio in a very rich white area. But most of everybody wanted Venus to win. And I remember that feeling, and it was so fun. And I remember being disappointed because Federer's not going to be there. Serena's not going to be there. See, Tony said, what a fun year. It was so fun. And all the big names skipped out. So grounds were kind of bare, and we just got to really hang out and have the tennis experience with friends and just have fun. And
I will come back. Since you said it was great. Remember that was when Coric got his first win over Rafa. I'm just pointing that out.
I think Rafa was the only one of the top people to show up.
And Rafa's like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Nobody came. Nobody did. We didn't watch a lot of tennis, but we just had so much fun. And I was like, this is what I love about the tennis community. It was so
nice. It's the fans.
And I want to say that Andreen and Reels both made other people's top lists. You were both on Maya's lists, meeting both of you. One of Maya's most favorite memories was
this is what
Andreen was when you guys watched Monfils at Indian Wells, and Maya, what for you, Reels, when you guys met at the U.S. Open and you saw each other and you just knew who each other were.
Exactly, and the wonderful thing is that Maya insisted in getting me liquored up. I'm telling you, that lady knows.
But for me,
an amazing woman. She is an amazing woman.
What this has all brought for me, the podcast. I've met so many people.
Thing of the decade. It's a thing of the decade.
It is. I've met so many people because of the podcast, but even more because of Twitter. And it has been so fun. So fun. And even if I didn't really like you, I'm glad I met you.
Are you saying that to people out there?
I mean, there were a few people I didn't really care for, but
it's a podcast that brings you more to generate from Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's
I love it. I love meeting I love meeting people in person. I think for the most part, I always say I always meet up. I do. I always enjoy
Tim,
it.
I feel that way about Rajiv Ram for a long time,
Well,
even
yes,
before the
everyone.
Olympics.
That's his name. Is fucking Rajiv Ram. I think
Tim,
that's,
that's
that's the only way Reels refers to him. Fucking.
You see, this is, and I blame Gregor because you see, Gregor lost to him that one time in Acapulco.
Wait, did we get everybody's number one moment?
What are your guys' number one moments in the chat?
Oh no, that was Reels, right?
That was ours. We did ours.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
we
we
did
did
it.
ours.
All of ours.
That was
That's wonderful.
We
So this
didn't
podcast is, I know y'all
do the top number 6. Sorry, we didn't do the top 6 for ladies this year, but we finished out the decade with our top 6.
Yes.
Any special moments that didn't make it on the list? Let me see. I'm looking at my list to see if I
Mhm.
had anything that I just didn't quite do.
I think for me, a special moment, I guess it's a combination. It's Coco beating Venus.
Yeah.
For me, that was like not a passing of the torch, but Coco is giving me hope, like you, Andre, that there is someone to cheer for.
Yes.
That I can feel free to love and enjoy in the next decade.
Yes.
Because some of my faves are going out. And I can cheer for Coco and not be about anything smutty, because some of these men, I'm only cheering for them because, it's true. Because I'm a thought. So, it's just the truth. So I am excited for a new decade. Fans, you can shoot us, DM us, my DMs are open.
Yeah, I mean, from the person who started with us on the podcast, Karen, she said for her, she had some favorite moments of the decade based on her favorites. For her, for Serena, it was her match against Dementieva. I'm assuming at Wimbledon.
Oh man.
That's 2009 though. Karen and I have the same memo apparently.
Yeah, you and Karen have the same 2009 orientation because for her it was Fed winning French Open, and then it was also for Venus winning the year-end championship for the first time in her career.
That's 2009.
Exactly. It was all 2009. 2009 was Karen's best year.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's all been very, very great. It's been really fun to just contemplate the journey of tennis in this fashion. Not necessarily match per se, but almost a little bit like how Reels was doing it, thinking about the sweep of the decade.
Yeah.
And you're right.
We had Kath tweet at Kath Loves Tennis. Her number one moment was Black Girl Magic. We're all kind of on the same page there.
I mean, I think we've been needing it.
We
think.
are the Federer of Tennis podcast. Quality shots. Quality shots.
Well, I mean, quality shots. Mitch it's like comparing it to Novak. You might have won more.
Were you better?
But we're better. We remember everything that we do.
I mean, and it's Christmas time. It's Christmas time. What's your favorite Christmas song? I have one.
Oh God, please let it not be Mariah Carey.
Oh no.
Please not be singing it.
Well, I'm not gonna sing it. Oh my God. We did say that we were gonna round this out with our Christmas wish for the next year.
Yes.
Tennis related?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I thought I was putting out wishes out there for what I want.
Is it DMX's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
This is my favorite.
What's your favorite?
You can't hear it?
Oh yeah, I hear it this Christmas. Oh. Okay. So my Christmas wish for tennis in 2020, I have 2. You
don't get 2. No,
I'm taking 2.
Okay, take 2 reels.
I want a brand new fucking ATP winner.
Amen!
Someone that I can really cheer for and like.
Well, listen, at this point in time, I'd settle for just a newbie. A new winner of a slam so that we can finally get this damn headline to be like, yes, the young ones have arrived. And
actually, no. I want that lost generation to win a slam.
Yeah. I would love it. I would love it if it's
a Monfils, a Sangha.
So would I. I would love
You
it.
know, that lost generation. They can't go out like that because at the rate Federer going, they're gonna retire before Federer.
No, I want a lost gen. I want a lost gen.
We don't
And
want any more Karl Malones and Charles Barkley in the ATP. Come on now.
I cannot. What's your second wish?
And my second wish is I'm hoping for a really fun Olympic surprise. I have tickets for the bronze medal match, so I'm hoping I see somebody good.
Wait.
Here
Time
she
out.
goes.
Did she going to Japan?
Here
she
she
Japan?
goes.
I have two. Listen, I told you all. I put down and I bid and I got 2 tickets for the Olympics. The second round and the Olympics bronze medal match.
Tell us a shit.
So that's it. I would like.
I'm gonna have damn internet there.
I know. I don't know what the heck's gonna happen. It's already too expensive, so I'm not sure how that's all gonna be it. But yes, I'd like lost. I love that. I'd like a lost generationer to win. It would do my heart so good if it's not a next gener. I would absolutely adore that.
Well,
Sasha,
okay.
so you'll have to endure or dragging you for another year. Just bear with it. 2021 could be your year, Sasha.
Listen, I need Kei Nishikori to not play any tennis so that he's healthy for the Olympics.
Oh God!
And he can go in there
if he doesn't
and win in Tokyo.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that would
How
make
amazing
not
would
winning a
Well, at least get the bronze medal, right?
No. He needs to go.
Monfils, get into the bronze medal match at least. Somebody I like, please.
I hope he's getting the silver. Let it be Kay and because that was what the US Open finals was supposed to be until Monfils lost his way.
I know.
Forgot what the fuck he was doing and called the left for the rest of that match from him.
I know. Oh, that might have been a good match too. Then I wouldn't have had to deal with.
Do you have
We wouldn't have
another
had to deal with Village. Yeah.
Was there another one, Andrew?
Oh no, it was that. I just
she too.
I need a good
a new winner and
a
good
new winner. A
Olympics.
good Olympic
Okay.
and a good Olympic.
Reels, do you have a Christmas wish?
As Venus is going to retire, I don't know how she's going to retire, if she's going to continue playing tennis, because I haven't seen that woman on any tennis court. I've seen Serena on a tennis court, but I'm always wanting Federer and Venus to win, so that's not really a wish. That's just my prayer. But my wish, I guess, is for tennis coverage to be...
Oh,
I know. Okay, something fun then.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
Nick Kyrgios get to the second week of all 4 majors.
Oh, good luck with that. I'm sorry, Nick. I say that out loud.
And Coco, Black Girl Magic. You know, I'm going for the black woman. Black Girl Magic next year. 2020 should be Black Girl Magic.
My Christmas wish for tennis next year is for Black girl dominance.
Oh gosh,
it is. I want and listen, I want them to win everything, and I'm gonna let the Black Girl Magic fly over into the ATP because I want a new slam winner as well. So my wish for WTA is some Black Girl Magic. Just keep getting better and do all the damn things. And the ATP, get your fucking ass together. And you know what? If you're not going to get your ass together, then Federer, quit fucking teasing us and get another goddamn Grand Slam. But really, I just want someone new. But if it's not going to be someone new, Federer, just come on, man. Stop squandering away match points.
Oh, Lord.
You know what? That should have been the thing about the decade, but I don't like pain.
You know what? I didn't find it though, because you know what? To be honest, Nole has been the player of the decade. So it's like,
Thank you, Andre.
I think the lovely drama girl is right. WTA press, don't diminish Coco. I see it coming with some of these underhanded remarks on social media. I get you, lovely drama girl. We see it. So I just need positive light around Coco because they come for you once. They come for you.
That's it, man.
They build you, so they got to break you down, unlike Maria.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, y'all. Thank you all for showing up for 3 hours in the middle of your Sunday.
Yes. Yes. And I know for those who'll be listening to us on the repeat and downloading to us on your travels and whatever, I think this is long enough to take you to DC or someplace like that.
All right.
We're that good.
You can fast forward the first half hour. We're just running our mouths.
And that's what they came for. That we're giving them what they want. So thank you, fans, for being with us. We have been on the air since 2015.
Wow.
And since the second episode, these women have been with me and they have stuck with me. They're my longest relationship. And they're my best relationship, and because it's no sex. It's not complicated enough.
Orgasms of the mind. Orgasms of the mind.
I know. Intellectual stimulation. You know, on a lot of dating apps I'm seeing it's sapiosexual. What the fuck is that? Get out of here with that shit. You trying to fuck Einstein. Get out of here. But anyway, happy holidays for y'all, whatever you celebrate. If you are not, just try to
follow the fucking naughty list and you know it.
Whether it's blood family or friendships, don't let anyone belittle you. Enjoy yourself, love yourself, treat yourself.
Yes.
Treat
yourself. Order a calendar from tenniswatchers.com.
Yes, you can, but skip January. You know how that is.
January's looking good. We tease, but January does look good.
So thank you all for being with us again. And there might be, I can't promise you, there might be little nuggets thrown along here, podcast, just to keep you honest, and just to let you know, if Federer pops up in places, you might pop up in places too. And for the New Year's, give us some suggestions what you would like us to do. We are open to suggestions. Janina might forget them all and not table them on the agenda, but you would have it. So thank you all for joining us and have a good evening. And last but not least, happy birthday again, Andreen.
Thank you very much.
Birthday. And I know it's some birthday out there. So in December birthday, people have a wonderful time and demand a separate birthday gift from your Christmas gift. Don't let those motherfuckers jiff you. Don't let them jiff you. That is trash, okay? It's trash.
It's been a great decade, y'all. Let's see what the next one brings for us.
No, Pablo, we're not doing any naked podcast. Can I meet you in person, Pablo, if you're trying to get naked pictures for me? No.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.